back in public session. Item E, presentation. Number 1, Friend of Education Award, Dr. Nichols.
Thank you, President Schofield, members of the Board of Education. Tim, would you like to join me here at the podium, if you don't mind, for the board? I do have a statement that I'll read. With the mandate for schools to teach students remotely during this past spring, came one disappointment after another, as event after event was canceled. The class of 2020 took the biggest blow, leaving the staff truly scrambling to find a way to make things happen for them. Tim Frankish reached out to us at the perfect time and offered his talents and creative mind to plan a commencement for this deserving class that will simply go down in history. Tim Frankish is a community member, business owner, and parent of a Falls student, Timothy Jr. He is committed to the schools, and from the beginning, he stressed to us how important it was for him to give back to our schools and help our senior class celebrate their important day in any way that he could. Tim Frankish owns In Focus Studios Photography. After administration was given the green light to move forward, he worked tirelessly to produce a virtual commencement that resembled the same experience that students have at Blossom Music Center. His video production made the ceremony come to life by incorporating all the details that go into this special day, from the speeches that are delivered by staff and students to the introduction and presentation of diplomas, to the implementation of performances by our commencement band and choir, to the traditional turning of the tassels. He gave thousands of students, families, and community members a front row seat to join in on our celebration of the class of 2020 through a stream of the event on the exact day and time it was originally scheduled. The extra attention to detail and the extra hours he put into making this happen is something that will never be forgotten. The class of 2020 thanks him, and the staff, families, and community members are eternally grateful. And as a parent of one of those graduates, I'm eternally grateful. During the filming of individual students, families had the opportunity to view their loved one. This is when Tim Frankish truly showed his love for the Falls. During this emotional and difficult time for our students and families, he demonstrated patience, love, and understanding by making each one of them feel like that moment was most important moment, not only for them, but also for him. It was very obvious when watching the final production of the commencement that the person that created this was not simply some videographer that one would find through a Google search, but that the magic that one was watching on the screen was produced by a person that is truly committed to making Cuyahoga Falls shine and is invested in our community. Thank you, Tim. I have a certificate of commendation for you that you can hang in your business so you choose or at your home. This certificate is presented to Tim Frankish and In Focus Studios and Photography in recognition of the efforts, time, and talents that you expended to create an extraordinary commencement ceremony for the Cuyahoga Falls High School class of 2020 during a worldwide pandemic. Your demonstration of love and commitment to the community, schools, and especially these students and their families made for a memorable and magical time of life event that will go down in history. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Take a picture with that, if you will. I generally do use 2 cameras too. Okay, that's one.
All right.
And one more.
I am smiling.
There we go. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank
Frank.
you.
Thank
We
you.
are so grateful.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Have a good evening. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Can
we put him under, I know we put him under Friends of Education on our website. Could we make him on Business and Community Partners as well?
Sure.
Give him a shout. Thank you.
Sure, you'll have to,
Send something to
yeah,
him.
you'll have to fill out some paperwork.
Item 2, proposed reopening plan for school year 2020, 2021. Dr. Nichols?
Thank you, President Schofield, members of the board. Thank you so much, Mr. Hutch. For those that are listening in, we are audio taping this portion, but we are also filming the screen for the presentation. And we're going to marry the audio and the video as soon as we're done here, and it will be available via our YouTube channel. And is it up on Board Docs right now? Okay, and it has just been put up on Board Docs. So if you are in Board Docs, you can follow along. So the first slide, first piece is basically what we're committed to, what the task force was committed to. We're committed to providing educational learning opportunities to meet every student's needs, ensuring that the learning and school culture meet the diverse needs of all of our learners, and providing equitable services and learning opportunities for all of our learners, and promoting and ensuring safe and healthy learning environments, monitoring and attending to every student's and staff members' well-being and social-emotional health. So we went into this situation with those commitments in mind. There we go. Okay. And the litmus test that that I continually mentioned in task force meetings was our mission and our vision. Every student, every day, every opportunity. And then our vision, in particular, their culture of caring. We innovate, we create, we personalize education for all. So those we used as our litmus test for the final product that we're presenting to you tonight. We maintained a very student-centered approach as we went through preparing this plan or putting this plan together. And we had several components that obviously circulate the student at the center. But our core business is our students and the education of our students. And with that being our core business and that being the central focus of our work. Our boy, that fast forwarded quick. I can't possibly commend or thank or appreciate or any of those superlatives and adjectives or adverbs. Our task force was amazing. And what's important is these folks volunteered their time. They weren't compensated to putting together this task force. These folks were to some degree handpicked, not only by administration but by their union leadership as well, and they volunteered their time and efforts and energy to this plan. So we had a K-5 team. We had a 6-12 team. We had a platform development team. We had a curriculum delivery and assessments team. We had a community assistance and communications team. And the addition of John Wasilko, our community relations coordinator, couldn't have been more appropriate in our timing. He's been a godsend, really. I've already experienced that. And then obviously we had an operations team. And these folks continue to meet. You're going to see that. We're continuing our Wednesday meetings. Because now really the rest of the work begins. Transportation. Okay, so I need to share with you really and walk you through the progression and the evolution of plans. Because we've all experienced and we've all experienced the change in the plans over the course of time. So we started this work with two real pieces in mind, the restrictions in mind is, I guess, what I would say. Number one, how are we going to get the kids to school? And then number two, what are we going to do with them when they get here? And so when we started, transportation looked like 1 to a seat if we were lucky. And that meant a 72 passenger bus could only have 24 students on it. And so we had no chance of having in-person education 5 days a week, all the students. We had no chance of that. And then once they got here, at that point in time, 6 foot social distancing was really the gold standard, and we didn't have much, if any, leeway, or didn't believe we had much, or if any, leeway at that time. And so, as you're going to see in later slides, 6 foot in our classrooms that average about 600 square foot mean that we can only put 8 or 9 students in a classroom. And so the skeleton plan that we rolled out then July 2nd was really based upon those issues. But the unfortunate piece, and with regard to that timing, is that Thursday, the American Academy of Pediatrics came out with that week, they came out with their opinion that students were much safer at school than they are at home, particularly our younger students. And Governor DeWine used the American Academy of Pediatrics as a basis for his press conference then. And when he said, we want the kids back in school. Okay, so that really kind of changed our mindset that when we came back and had our administrative meeting, check-in meeting on Monday, and then our task force meeting on that Wednesday. And we started asking the question, can we get the kids back full time, particularly our younger kids? And so in hearing everything that I heard from all of the sources, including our health department agencies and our task force teams, and looking at the survey results, that's when we started going down the road of K-5, back full time, 5 days a week. And so it was based on those sets of information. But then after that, really kind of the governor issued this whole risk level color coding piece that caused us then to also rethink it as late as this weekend, really, quite frankly, and start really taking a look on how we're going to incorporate that into the plan. And then we had our task force meeting last Wednesday. Is that right? I'm getting my days all jumbled up here, but we had our task force meeting, and so have finalized at least in terms of our recommendation to the board, have finalized using the color-coded system to define our academic delivery, and that's what you're going to see here today. So in terms of transportation, busing will continue to be provided to students at the same levels that we have provided in the past, 1.75 miles for elementary students and or 1 mile for elementary students and 1.75 miles for our middle school students. And then to our high school students that qualify for transportation as a result of their IEP. Busing will follow state and local guidelines, so we'll have 2 to a seat. And I want to reassure the board and everyone that's listening that all of this has been vetted with the health department. They have been in my Zoom meetings with the superintendents, and so we've been in constant contact with Tanya Burford and Donna Skoda, and they've been in our meetings, and so all of this has been vetted with them as well. We're going to keep household students together. We're going to load from back to front. In other words, when I come in the door, all students have to wear masks. Everybody has to have a mask on the bus. And we're going to fill the back seats first and then all the way up to the front seats. And buses will be equipped with hand sanitizing stations for use by the students. We will have some spare masks there, a limited number of spare masks on the board, on the buses, just in case. And then all of the buses will be disinfected at the end of each day with an electrostatic sprayer that we bought several of them. Okay, is that the right slide? I think it is. All right, classroom spaces. We're showing you pictures here as I promised just a few minutes ago. What you have at the top is a classroom, a typical classroom at Roberts Middle School. And so as the 6 feet social distancing has been relaxed, not only through AAP, the pediatricians or pediatrics, American Academy of Pediatrics, but also through governor's statements and through what the health department has shared with us. So that 6 foot is now relaxed. If it were in place as we started this plan, we could only, like I said, put 8 students and a teacher in a classroom. With 3 feet, we can go to 17 students and a teacher in a classroom, and that particular classroom that you're seeing is about 600 square feet, which is fairly typical of some of our classrooms there. The CFHS picture at the bottom is a 500 square foot classroom, and that is in the old section. That's in 100s, 200s, and 300s there, and you can see a picture of the advantage of going to 3 foot distance. Eventually, we will share with you what that means in terms of masking and so on and so forth through the later slides. The top slide on this, or the top pictures on this next slide, is Richardson Elementary. At 6 foot, we can only get 10 students and 1 teacher in that classroom. At 3 foot, we can get 16 students and 1 teacher in a 609 square foot classroom there. We're going to have all of our teachers, but it's even more pervasive in the elementary, that the personal items, the personal effects have to be removed from the classrooms, because we have to be able to maximize the square footage in those classrooms. And then the next set of pictures is Bullock Middle School. Again, same kind of a scenario in a 650 square foot classroom where 6 foot, not 8 students and a teacher, but 3 feet means 21 students and a teacher. As you know, we conducted surveys and we've gotten a lot of feedback from our community, and we want to share with everybody that your voice does matter to us, and we appreciate you sharing your thoughts with us. and we used the survey information in all of our subcommittees of our task force. And what's the result of the surveys? Parent and student feedback. While there were approximately 868 families that returned surveys, which represents approximately 1,189 students throughout our district, about a quarter of our students. 60% responded that they want their children back in school. And 9% responded that they probably would not send their kids back to school. 31% is undecided. And, so the 31% are making decisions perhaps based on this plan that's rolling out today. There we go. Parent and student feedback, the top rated responses to the surveys were, what we heard most was consistency with remote learning among classes and grades. Now, the reality is we had to adjust in 2 days in the spring. And what we learned through the process is that we needed to be more consistent in our remote learning. Transparency with communications about illness, advance notice of decisions due to child care arrangements, reduce and streamline technology options, which you'll see throughout as well. In-person learning for students with disabilities. We'll touch on that a little bit later, but essentially students with disabilities, we are examining those on individual cases. When University of Akron rolled out their plan and they had 5 days a week with students with disabilities, one of the pieces that was in there was for the most severe cases. Well, we think we can look at all of the cases and identify what's the most appropriate learning situation for individual students. I don't think that what I'm saying is I don't think there's a one size fits all. Virtual options for students with high risk concerns, social and emotional concerns for children, certainly, and social and emotional concerns for staff too. More regular check-ins, resource and content organized in Google Classroom environments, and the additional of small group and individual learning opportunities for students. So those are the top rated responses we received through the surveys. And I think our task force did a nice job of incorporating them into our plan. This piece is directly from the state, right? Ohio COVID-19 risk level guidelines. And it starts at level 1 in the yellow. And it identifies exactly what is expected, I should say, or what the guidelines are. I call it expectations, kind of, at each one of the levels. And so this is available through the website. This is through the Ohio website and State of Ohio website. And under their COVID-19 section. And it identifies what we need at level 1, which is conduct daily health symptoms, self-evaluation, stay home if symptomatic, maintain social distancing of at least 6 feet from non-household members. We have heard that that's been relaxed through AAP and then through the governor as well. Wear face coverings in public, especially when social distancing is difficult to maintain. Increase caution with interacting with others, not participating in social distancing or wearing face covering. Avoid traveling to high-risk areas. You heard perhaps yesterday, Governor Cuomo out of New York specifically mention Ohio, now in their quarantine list of quarantine states. And then follow good hygiene standards. Then at level 2, it increases, right? So it increases to the same as level 1, but then avoid contact with anyone who is considered high risk, and high risk individuals take extra caution, decrease in-person interactions outside the household, and seek medical care when needed. Okay, so that's a step up. And then level 3 becomes even more restrictive or more prescriptive, if you will, to include decrease in in-person interactions with others, consider necessary travel only, and limit attending gatherings of any number. Okay, and so in our plan, you're going to see a definitive difference at K-5 from level 2 to a level 3. And then you're going to see another definitive difference at level 4, because level 4 adds stay home and travel at necessary, only as necessary. So then the next slide depicts our plan and the levels associated with our plan. And so at level 1, at K-5, the learning option is in person in the buildings. That's 5 days a week, in person in the building. And at level 2, K-5, it stays the same. So yellow and orange, or level 1, level 2, we're proposing that we go to school 5 days a week in person. And then at level 3, that's when we switch to the blended model that was first identified in July 2nd. That's when we make that change. And then at level 4, we go completely remote for our K-5 students. Our 6-12 students would be in blended learning as we rolled out July 2nd through level 3. And then level 4 go completely remote. Some might ask, well, what's the difference between K-5 and 6-12, and why aren't you doing the same thing at those two levels? There's two primary reasons. Number one, age of the students and their ability to be self-directed, what our pediatricians have told us, that they're better at school than they are at home. And so that's first and foremost. The second piece is transition time between classes. K-5, students can stay in their classrooms and our staff can move. That's easy for us to do. We can even do specials in the classroom. My only concerns are what happens at recess and lunch and sometimes maybe specials. Okay? So those are my only concerns about moving students during the day in a K-5 environment. So we have much more control. 6-12 environment, that just doesn't exist. We would have a lot more passing time in a blended learning environment with only half of the students here at a time. That helps us with the traffic flow and congregating in spaces. And of course, if our families don't want, if they're concerned and don't want to come to the buildings, they don't have to. We are building a K-12 online learning option, remote learning option, that is going to be called Black Tiger Remote Learning Academy. And so once this plan is rolled out, like in the next day or two, depending on the number of tweets that we get from you as a Board of Education, once this plan is rolled out in the next few days, we are also going to send 2 commitment pieces to our parents and our families that we need to have back within 2 weeks. We have to have them back by then. And those 2 commitment pieces are you going to choose option 1, coming to school in whatever format we are, depending on the level, or option 2, are you going to attend Black Tiger Remote Learning Academy? That's the first question. And that's a commitment of a semester, a 1 semester commitment. And we need a 1 semester commitment because of staffing. Staffing then becomes the next level. Once we have those numbers defined, then we can go down the road of staffing each situation, particularly our remote learning option.
Hey, Todd.
The second commitment form is transportation. If you're coming to school, are you going to ride the bus? Yes, Mr. Martin.
On the commitment for one semester, did I understand that correctly?
Yeah.
Brett? Is there a reason or was any thought given as to making that the full year commitment? So this way we would know for the whole year that commitment from the parents. And this way they understood that whatever they chose is what they would be locking themselves in for their kids for the whole year, not just for a semester.
Yeah, we actually did give some thought to full year and the timing of it. 9 weeks, semester, full year. What is it that we want? Well, because this is all brand new, and we don't want our students to get into a remote learning situation and it just completely doesn't work for them, or get into a building situation and it doesn't work for them. Let's say we're right now in red. So if we started today, we would be in a blended learning situation, K to 12. And if they get in that situation and it just doesn't work for them, we only wanted that impact to be at a semester right now, as opposed to a full year. In terms of the 9 weeks, 9 weeks is too short for us in terms of staffing each one of those situations and being able to make moves. So that's our thought process on the semester.
I would still think a longer time frame for stability, but okay.
Thank you. We are absolutely committed to health and safety. I think it skipped a slide. All of our staff will be required to wear face masks and shields when instructing and moving about the building, or meeting in groups. So, we're wearing masks during the day. We're wearing masks here, and at central office, we're wearing masks, every day. And so we're committed to the wearing of masks for our adults. Students in grades K to 2 will be strongly encouraged to be wearing their masks or face shields when 6 foot social distancing can't be maintained. And as I mentioned, our classrooms are really going to be set up at 3 foot. And to go back to that a little bit, our architects, TDA, are designing, schematics for setup of classrooms to maximize our student capacity in each one of those rooms. And then students in grades 3 through 12 will be expected to wear face masks at risk levels 1 and 2 when social distancing can't be maintained. Students in 3 through 12 will be required to wear masks when it's level 3, when we can't maintain the 6 foot distancing. And mask breaks will be given throughout the day and more frequently for our youngest learners. Often I hear about the 3rd floor at Lincoln and the heat or what have you, particularly at the beginning of the year. And often I hear about our younger students, and getting used to face masks. We would strongly encourage our parents to start training their kids on wearing a face mask now if you haven't already done so. So this is going to be our new world, our new environment. We've got to keep our students and our staff healthy and safe, or do the best that we can with it. Additional cleaning and PPE, personal protective equipment, will be implemented in accordance with the CDC and Ohio and Summit County COVID-19 guidelines. Students will be given time to practice proper hygiene routines with the help of Akron Children's Hospital medical assistants and staff. Videos are going to be made available for families and practicing at home through the help of our school nurse, Erin Bradley. Personal health care and safety lessons will be modeled and practiced to support everyone's safety. Health checklists and temperature assessments should take place at home by families before coming to school each day, whether arriving by bus, car, or walking. Hand sanitizer will be located at the entrances and all classrooms. We have purchased 216 additional hand sanitizer units, and we will be purchasing the large hand sanitizer, bottles. You've seen the big ones for each of our classrooms. Each classroom will be equipped with cleaning supplies to sanitize work areas throughout the day. Students and staff will practice regular hand washing routines. And at the end of each day, classrooms, restrooms, offices, and all touch surfaces will be disinfected with electrostatic sprayer. K-5 classrooms will be limited to 18 to 22 students. Unfortunately, in K-5, what that means is that at the limiting of 18 to 22 students per classroom, in full disclosure, we are going to have some of our open enrollment students that have been with us maybe throughout their career that we are just not going to have physical space for. It may be as many as 200 K-5 students that are in those situations. And it comes down to just flat physical space in the classrooms. K-12 will follow a 1-to-1 ratio for students to devices, eliminating the need for sharing devices. Ryan, as we have mentioned, has a warehouse full of Chromebooks that he's inventorying and counting and so on and so forth. And what we're trying to do for our K-2 students is have them leave their Chromebook at home and have another one for them here at school, so they do not have to transport them back and forth for our youngest learners. K-12 classrooms are going to adhere to the 3 foot to 6 foot social distancing as we can, the most space that we can, and still maximize the students in the classroom, maximize square footage for students in the classroom. Directional signs will be posted in the hallways and on stairs so that students will travel in only one direction. As you can imagine, the 100s, 200s, 300s is just a great big square. And so there'll be stairs that you go up, stairs that you go down, and a circular path around those floors.
Will they need additional time to do that?
Will who need additional time? Schedules will be set up so that they can, yes. And remember that we're only having half of the students at a time. So schedules will be put together accordingly. Meals, K-5, during risk levels 1 and 2, breakfasts and lunches will be served while still remaining socially distanced. Each building will create a procedure that is best fitting for students' social and safety needs. We're going to try to do it as much as possible in the cafeteria, perhaps, which is one of my concerns about moving throughout the building. And talking with our food service supervisor, Bill Bailey, Chef Bill Bailey, making lunches and transporting them to the classroom requires additional staffing that we just don't have right now. During risk levels 3 and 4, we're working on plans that will be communicated in terms of lunches. And even 4, when they're out, completely remote learning, working on the food service needs of our kids and families. At 6-12 level, there'll be grab and go lunches will be available for the students at risk levels 1, 2, and 3. Remember, they're going to be blended learning situations at 1, 2, and 3 at 6 to 12. And again, working on plans for when and if we reach a risk level 4. Grab and go lunches will take place at 12:30. You'll see the schedule in some upcoming slides. Oops. Come on. Come on. There we go. All right. Cooperate with me. There we go. Grades, credits, and attendance. All students will be held accountable for their learning. Different than what we had this spring, right? All learning options for students will follow the same grading expectation on assignments, learning activities, and assessments. Students will receive grades for each class, and grades will be reflected in progress book and on student report cards. Students who take high school level courses will receive credit for those courses upon passing. Students will be required to participate in both in-person and virtual work in order for attendance to count on those days. All right, so learning option 1. What does that look like? Okay. Option 1, at school all day, Monday through Friday, daily during risk levels 1 and 2, at school all day and on a rotating basis during risk level 3. In general, A to K students would be Monday, Tuesdays, and L to Z students on Wednesday, Thursday, with virtual learning on the other days and times. Families will be scheduled to attend on the same days, and there will be a process to change the scheduled days due to childcare or similar issues. All students will learn from home if we are at risk level 4. Your child's same teachers will be providing daily online live instruction as well as assignments using the same resources used in the classroom. Learning options are chosen for 1 semester, August to December. All right. I must have a really heavy thumb. Option 1 for 6 to 12. They are at school until 12:30 on a rotating basis during levels 1, 2, and 3. In general, A to K on Monday and Tuesday, L to Z on Wednesday and Thursday. That part's a little confusing. We need to clean that up just a little bit on both of those slides. With online instruction or online live instruction on the other days and times. Families will be scheduled to attend on the same days. Students attend every class, every day in some format. There will be a process to change scheduled days due to childcare or similar issues. And online live instruction will take place every day for all students, grades 6 through 12. All students will learn, again for 6 to 12, all students will learn from home during risk level 4 with the same teachers and resources used during the blended learning situation. Learning options are chosen for a 1 semester period of time, again. Hurt. All right. Learning option 1. These are examples of schedules. But before we get there, we want to provide you with some definitions in terms of what do we mean when we're using this terminology. So, in-person instruction. Teachers design lessons according to district curriculum maps and pacing guides. Lessons include all course experiences, labs, tests, quizzes, projects, research papers, etc. Teachers use evidence-based practices and make instructional decisions based on student data. 6 through 12 teachers deliver instruction to approximately half of the students assigned to them each period. Teachers have posted lessons for students to access from Google Classroom. This includes assignments, classwork, class activities, and pre-recorded lessons. Teachers use evidence-based practices and make instructional decisions based on student data. For elementary students, instruction will be varied in whole group and small group. Instructional times can last over the course of the day to work options. Teachers and students interact together regularly online for short periods of time. Lessons are designed to last the length of the regular class periods or age-appropriate length of time. Interactions include short lessons, extension activities from previous lessons, opportunities to reteach material, and reviewing assessments. Teachers construct online lessons. In terms of planning and conference time, teachers are expected to construct online lessons. Teachers design in-person instruction, parent communications, IEP meetings, collaboration with teachers and departments, grading, responding to student emails, RTI and MTSS, response to intervention, and multi-tiered systems of support.
Are we going to establish an expectation of when they need to respond to people by? That's one of the things I heard about this spring. They felt like
Your response time is
times
too slow?
We're a little laggy.
Thank you for your recommendation. We can do that. In general, I use a 24-hour rule. In general, would be my suggestion. You know, if a teacher or if a student or parent reaches out to one of us, generally it's a 24-hour rule in terms of response, unless it happens to be on a weekend. You know, and then it would be by Monday. By close of business Monday, I should say. Student schedule definitions and responsibility for students. Students, in-person instruction. They are expected to attend school during the scheduled time and receive instruction designed by their regular classroom teachers. In other words, it looks like school. Online instruction. Students are expected to access posted lessons via Google Classroom. This includes assignments, classwork, class activities, and pre-recorded lessons. Lessons and classwork are designed to last the regular length of in-person class periods. Online live instruction. Teachers and students interact together regularly online for short periods of time. Interventions include short lessons, extension activities from previous lessons, opportunities to reteach material, and reviewing for assessments. Independent student work, which is Friday only. Students work to complete all assignments, assessments, projects from the week. Here's the schedule on a 6-12, example of a 6-12 teacher schedule. You can see that on Monday, for example, they start off with their P&C from 7:35 to 8. Students then are in-person instruction, so we're talking about A to K, and they are going through their periods 1 through 4. And then they pick up their lunch and exit the building. Teachers then also have their lunch period and their P&C. From 1:30 to 2:30, you can see online live instruction for periods 5 through 7 and Tiger time in addition. So that is an example of what the teacher day looks like, teacher schedule looks like. And then on Friday, the teacher schedule is online live instruction for all students A to Z, rolling through periods 1 through 4 in the morning and 5 through 7 in the afternoon. That's a significant difference in what happened this spring. What does a sample student schedule look like? if I am a student in A through K, on Monday, I'm going to school 1 through 4 in the morning. I have travel time from 12:30 to 1:30, and then I'm back in school online in the afternoon for periods 5, 6, 7, and Tiger Time. And then on Tuesday, I'm in-person instruction 5 through 7. I have travel time, and then I'm back in school online for periods 1, 2, 3, and 4. On Wednesday, I have my online instruction for 1 through 4. We have the lunchtime built in, and then we're online live instruction 5, 6, 7. Tiger Time. And then Thursday, flip that 5 to 7 online instruction in the morning, and then 1 through 4 in the afternoon online live instruction. And Friday's schedule is all online live instruction as we shared earlier, 1 through 7 plus Tiger Time. So a sample schedule for grades K to 5. We have black team and a gold team based upon alphabet. Black team is in the morning, and the gold team is in the afternoon on Monday and Tuesday. What's that? Say that again, please.
The black team would be there in person,
Oh, that's right.
and the gold team would be at home.
I'm sorry. I didn't read that correctly. The black team is in person during the full day, sorry. And the gold team is online instruction on the Monday and Tuesday. And then we flip it for Wednesday, Thursday. And then Friday, all of our groups are receiving online live instruction.
But these are just samples that.
Yeah, I mean, they're samples right now. I mean, they'll be fleshed out in more detail. I mean, we still have another month before we get to school. So they're going to be fleshed out in more detail. Their differences are going to be small differences between our 6 buildings based upon setup and so on and so forth. But this is the template for all buildings to follow to make sure that we maintain a student-centered approach and adhere to the litmus tests of our mission or vision.
Remember, the elementary K through 3, they're self-contained. So the teachers really have that prerogative to design their day for what their students need. So we can't emphasize enough how this is just a sample. We don't want to tell a teacher how to design their day. They're professionals and they're experts within their own rights, and they need to do that. So it's a little bit harder for us to give you the samples of elementary because we want the teachers to have a voice in that and for them to determine that within their building, within their special schedules, and within what's best for their class of students. So it's really important that we say that because we wanted something on paper so people can visualize what's going to be taking place. But for example, when it says social emotional, teachers don't have just a social emotional lesson. They typically have a literacy lesson that's folding in social emotional lessons and examples and activities. So we just wanted you to have a picture of what is there. And when you speak with the teachers, our experts, they'll flush that out and they'll work their magic. And then you'd be able to really see what it looks like in an elementary classroom for each of those different kinds of settings.
Just promoting cross-curricular instruction is always a
absolutely.
main big goal here. So.
Absolutely.
Right.
Thank you, Dr. Seifer. We appreciate that input, and
I'm
Mr.
just-
Jones,
I'm
we
looking
appreciate
at
that
that.
input. It was necessary.
When would children in grades 2 and 3 get their unified arts? I'm sorry, I can't see it, and if it's there, I apologize. I see the gold children on Monday are getting their unified arts for 4th and 5th grade. And on Tuesday, our K and 1s are getting their unified arts. And by that, we mean they're going to art class and they're going to music class and so on, correct? Okay, I'm struggling to find,
Well, and again, it's just an example of different options of things that they can do. When they're in person, they have their specials classes. But at the elementary level, we want to make sure, since they're only going to be in person 2 days, and they have 3 specials, we need to make sure that they can get that 3rd special in. So for example, if they, on Wednesday, they have music, and on Thursday, they have gym class, on their afternoons, we want to make sure that they have exposure to art. Do you see what we're saying? So again, it's an example, because
Sure.
each building principal, when they create their building schedule, they'll take all of that into account. And, they'll have all of that mapped out. And then from there, the teachers can design what they need to do to make sure that they have 90 minutes of literacy every day. They have, an hour dedicated to their science and their social studies and their math. But then they also need to have their 30 minutes for their specials classes, for art, for music, for PE. They need to be able to have technology time with our CTISs who come into the classroom and give them hands-on technology lessons. Well, when will that take place and how does that look? So again, it's hard to put that on a piece of paper right now without you being able to see examples of maybe 10 teachers at a time, so you can see how all the schedules match together. And after all that gets developed, we're happy to share that. We can share a master schedule, and then we can share the map of how a teacher plans out their day. But again, we don't tell the teacher how to plan out their day. They get certain chunks that they plan around, and then we want them to be able to have that autonomy to make sure that they're doing what's best for their students within what they need to be doing to meet curriculum needs.
When do we give the teachers the time that we normally would give them during early release Wednesday to do that work? Am I getting ahead of you?
Go ahead. Should be incorporated in Friday.
Okay.
So that's
Right,
where,
yeah, if
that's
you
where
go
we're
back,
incorporating it.
That's reflected on the.
So the early
6-12
release
teacher
Friday?
schedule.
it'll be early release Friday.
Except it's in the, if you go back to the 6-12 teacher schedule,
I don't have a name for it.
It's that 10 to 12:30
Right
time.
there, it
Yeah.
says ERF.
ERF, and so it's actually during the middle of the day. And so the elementary teachers also have something like that incorporated during the middle of their Friday as well, when they're in a blended model.
Thank you.
But we'll keep early release Wednesday when they're in person, we'll keep that on Wednesdays.
For K-5,
Pardon me, what'd I say?
For K-5.
For K-5. Yep, for K-5. But all that, everything
Maybe we
that
should
says
think
P,
about that.
P/C,
Because
those
those
planning
Wednesday
and
children will
conference.
be getting robbed.
So elementary teachers, they receive 80 minutes every single day for their planning and conference. So that's factored in, that's something that's in their contract, and the principals always make sure that that's factored in.
The
That's
scope
not
of-
something that's ever disturbed.
That is simply when we're all in. That's what they're talking about in terms of the early release Wednesday,
not at blended.
not blended, so it's not half the students getting robbed or anything of that nature. Right, so that's only in an all-in situation.
Then we flip to Fridays.
I have a question, if
Sure.
you could clarify it for me. When I'm looking at the middle school and high school schedule, it's built on the premise that when the kids grab and go, they will go to a space for the afternoon where they will continue to receive instruction
Correct.
according to their periods.
That's correct.
If for whatever reason that child cannot transition in that period of time due to childcare, whatever, these instructional periods for the afternoon can be accessed at a different time perhaps, or only during this time?
So the design here is that they would be accessed during this time. What I hear you saying, and what we can consider with our faculty is perhaps taping their online instruction, either using Loom or something of that nature, where they're delivering online, in-person instruction, but they're also recording it at the same time, using something like a Loom.
And that's why I wanted that clarified, because we're assuming that, the kids can transition that quickly, but in the practicality and reality of the real world, if grandma can't get them, they
Well,
can't
Wait
get
a
to
minute.
grandma's.
I thought they were, wait a minute, I'm totally lost
Okay.
right now.
Okay.
They grab and go a lunch
Right.
and go where?
home or someplace where they can access the internet. And they receive online instruction. Remember, they have one-to-one, they have their technology. So all they have to do is go to a place, any place that they can get Wi-Fi.
But they won't eat at school, they will
No.
take their lunch
Right.
home.
Go, yeah.
Okay.
And,
The afternoon.
we're having conversation about, and a food service staff is looking at, like, okay, you got an A to K student, right? They have to grab and go their lunch on Monday, Tuesday, but what about lunch on Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, right? And so our food service staff has that in their plans. To perhaps you're grabbing more than one meal to go in those kinds of situations. Or have the ability to get a meal in some way, shape, or form.
So the kids are going in the morning,
That's correct.
Monday and Tuesday. Then at lunch, they grab and go home.
That's correct.
Okay. I just need to know when to pick them up. When do I pick these kids
One of the
up?
great things about
Okay.
the online learning.
I didn't
and
catch
the
that
videotapes.
before, so.
So when students want to watch a lesson again,
They
they can
can-
do
that
that
is
versus
nice.
in person. A
Mhm.
student switches, they go to their second period class, they receive instruction for 45 minutes or 50 minutes, and then they leave.
Mhm.
They don't get to watch that lesson again.
I
That
think
is
that's-
one
I
of
think
these
it's
hidden
good.
beautiful secrets
Right.
with online instruction, is things can be rewatched as many
Yes.
times as students want. Parents can rewatch it, caregivers can
Yeah.
rewatch it. That can be something that families do together.
And frankly, it's best practice.
Yeah.
So
No, I
it's really.
really appreciate that because I know my daughter's attending college and they use Blackboard and they have everything right there. She can check her grades, her assignments, there's pre-recorded lessons so she can get in, go back if she needs to a couple times. I really like that.
And at University of Akron, they use Brightspace.
Yeah.
So it's different learning management systems.
Yeah, but it is really nice. It's all there on one thing.
So
That
the
was
key here, though, in the afternoons, the classes are only 15 minutes long.
They will be either
15 minutes.
short mini lessons, or they might be like exit ticket type of activities, like formative assessments. I have to give kudos to our 612 task force. They really look to create a very student-centered.
I'm just thinking
Yeah.
in terms of logistics. I mean,
Because
to
it's-
simultaneously sign off from my science class at 1:45 and be ready to go at 1:45 for my math class. I mean, I'm signing in to another teacher's classroom, and
Because they're
signing
doing
out.
it, because they're doing it through Google, literally,
It's just a move of the
it's
mouse.
just a
Okay,
click.
so they should be.
So all of that's gonna be uniform then for the
Yeah.
kids.
Yes, that's one of our goals, that's what
Okay.
Mr. Hutch is
So I'm not
working on.
switching over to Flipgrid
Something,
and
yeah,
now I'm going to,
something.
yeah. So, because I think that it would be an impossible
You're right.
different passwords, I mean, what parents told me
Right.
about with, kind of problematic,
You're
but
right.
I mean, it just can't simultaneously be doing two things at the same time, let alone do it 4 times.
So then we're only having, oh, I'm sorry.
The blended learning works well, there's a balance of synchronous
Mhm,
and asynchronous instruction. And that's why it works. There are moments when we're all together.
mhm.
There's also moments where there's independent work that can be investigatory and then be brought back. So 15 minutes of time to launch kids on an adventure, and let them go and do independent asynchronous learning and bring that, and it's that movement between synchronous and asynchronous. And what we know from our parents is they want to see their kid with a teacher. when they're in
Yes.
kindergarten. And that's a very fair request. I want that as
Yes.
a parent for my kid. I also want my kid to be tasked into meaningful situations. For example, as a parent, what didn't work for me, teacher was well intended. Third grade teacher reading out loud to her class over Zoom was not the best way to engage children. A brief meeting followed by some independent activities, followed by a regrouping is a better way to manage that time and engage that student. So it's streamlining the resources so our parents aren't overwhelmed, so they don't have to log into 10 different things. Make it as easy as we can. And harness the magic when we go blend it of, here we're all together, here's your task, here we're at together. So you don't have to have everyone together for 15 minutes and not be productive. And that's a challenge for families.
Okay, so for middle and high school students, they'll only be going to actual classes in the morning.
That's correct.
How are they gonna get all their, okay, because a lot of kids take 6, 7 classes.
Mhm.
So how are we working so they get all their classes,
So.
the
2
same
days-
amount of time? I'm sorry, I didn't.
Okay, so 2 days a week, so they're
Let me go
splitting their
with,
class period.
Okay.
trying to get to the sample
Okay.
student schedule for you.
Yeah, see, I didn't catch that.
So, Monday morning,
Okay,
here's 1 through 4,
and then,
Tuesday morning,
5,
this is an example for 8 through K.
Okay.
Here's 5 through 7, and then Tiger Time, which we're
Okay.
using for
Yeah.
like social emotional and check-ins. And
I
we know
got-
that
I
this is
got
a
it,
tough
Julie.
time
I'm
for our
sorry, I
kids.
missed
That's
it.
okay.
I missed
And then the
that.
days
Okay.
that they're not there, those are the independent learning activities
Okay.
that Mr. Hutch was saying, that they're kind of jump-starting during those afternoon times.
Okay, good enough.
And I've been asked questions about, the honors, AP, CCP. We're offering the same classes.
Mhm.
The course offerings don't change in this model. And quite frankly, as you talked about Blackboard and I talked about Brightspace, this is really good training for our students and what they're going to
Yeah,
experience
right.
post-secondary. All of the classes are online classes at University of Akron right now. My son's entire schedule is online through Brightspace. And one of the advantages of CCP here and attached with University of Akron is he's already used Brightspace,
Yeah.
and so he's already experienced that. And I'm sure your situation with Blackboard's the same, and so really we're putting our kids into
Good.
an advantage, because they're used to using those learning management systems before they go.
So I have another question then.
Mhm.
And again, it's with picking up kids. So they're all gonna, middle, elementary, and high school all be at the same time? Okay,
Middle school and high school are dismissed at
Staggered.
12:30,
okay. So they're still gonna maintain that stagger.
and the elementary
Okay.
school will be there
Good,
full
All
day, even if they're on their split schedule,
yeah,
they'll
okay.
be there full day, it's
Okay.
just half the kids.
How do we maintain even 3 feet of social distancing when everyone's getting out that's here at 12:30 and going to that cafeteria for their grab and go?
Remember I said that the real work now begins?
Okay.
That's part of the real work that begins, and we're using this restart planning guide and walking through each one of those pieces for our restart planning guide. We've got a month to be ready, and
Ms.
or
Bogdan already
thereabouts.
Started that conversation today.
What's that?
Ms. Bogdan and Mr. Bailey already started that conversation today about what would the next steps be in terms of getting lunches distributed and things like that.
So that's the best answer I have for you right now. Is now the rest of the work begins.
And then to go off Mrs. Moffat's point about, record it and make it live. I think that's really the key in any planning, is to provide as many both and opportunities for parents as possible, because we know not everyone's situation is the same.
That's correct.
And because we've all felt it as human beings, that this whole pandemic is putting a strain on every part of our lives.
Mhm.
And family schedules are not the same. And so as much as we can make both and options, that's going to provide better opportunities for our students. So.
Concur.
And this is giving,
Oops, I'm sorry,
both
Phil.
schedules are giving more uniformities to the kids, more, more contact with teachers, everything that we heard parents say in the survey. More contact time with the teachers, more scheduling, more
Structure.
structure, thank you.
But while I was on the food service mindset, will we still be able to provide lunches for our people that go completely remote?
Yeah, we're working on that. I
We're
mean,
working on that.
if I go back to the meals slides, they're developing things for,
All remote. People that might be all
Level
remote
4.
while we're otherwise.
I know the program Bill Bailey put in place in the spring was just
It
phenomenal.
was.
And
Correct.
adding the buses filled with lunches at some strategic spots in town
Mhm.
was
Yeah,
really
it
well
was-
received, and I think he's got that down to an art, so.
She does.
It's-
All right, learning option number 2, if you're ready.
Mhm.
Okay. Remember that learning option 2 is our Black Tiger Remote Learning Academy. Offered to all students, K to 12. Will learn at home via an updated, more robust 100% remote learning experience that includes Cuyahoga Falls City School District teachers, administrators, our people overseeing the program with face-to-face time every day. The curriculum will meet the same standards as our curriculum and the state of Ohio standards. Students participating in this option will be using an online curriculum platform designed by an outside company for the basis of instruction. 100% online learning option for families who prefer virtual education. I absolutely commend these folks sitting here. Went into this piece, and one of my must-haves was a parallel platform. So it's one of my must-haves because I wanted it to be as easy as possible for students and families to move back and forth. Because right from the very beginning, we were considering this whole, what we thought back then was a stoplight approach. Green, we're all in. Yellow, we got some kind of blended, and red, we're all out. And we got to be able to move between those 3 options. We got to have flexibility. The only way we could do that was a parallel platform, and these folks are making it happen. So I can't praise them enough. Elementary students, option 2. They're expected to have access to log into their Google Classroom during student hours, 8:30 to 3, and participate in live instruction with their teacher and to take part in small group learning opportunities. Students will not be online for the entire learning day. Students will need to be available to engage with their classroom community of learners to continue growing their social emotional skills, interacting with peers, and to engage in interactive learning. Secondary students 6 to 12 will have required check-in times as well as times for teacher office hours and small group instruction during 8 to 3. Elementary students K to 5 will use the same resources that are used for students that attend school on site. The pacing may be different, but the scope and sequence of the learning will remain the same. All students will be responsible for district and state testing, even if they participate in Black Tiger Remote Learning Academy. And our Black Tiger Remote Learning Academy students will have the opportunity to participate in our activities. CFCSD teachers will be selected for the Black Tiger Remote Learning Academy. We are pretty close to ready to post for those positions after rolling out this plan. And they're going to be selected because of their passion to build relationships with students and their ability to engage with students in an online platform. Teachers will be instrumental in designing specific schedules based on student needs. So the process right now is we bring those teachers on board and we build a schedule with those teachers, similar to what Rachel was saying with regard to our K-5 staff. Teachers who are responsible for instruction in this remote learning environment will receive professional development and ongoing support. Technology. One of the pieces that, I don't know if it's in here or not, but one of the pieces that I would like to add for people that are listening outside is that we are planning to have professional development sessions with parents as well, so that we educate them on the use of Edmentum and MobiMax and Dojo and Remind. We're using Dojo K-5, Remind 6-12 for communication purposes. We're going to continue to use our Blackboard Connect system, all-call system as well, for all levels. So those are some pieces to the puzzle that are maybe not necessarily incorporated into this PowerPoint, but they are intentional. Next steps, we are committed to recommendations from our partners in safety and education, ODE, Department of Health, OHSAA, and Summit County Health Department. Weekly task force meetings will continue to be held. As I mentioned, now is the time for the real work, or not the real work, the rest of the work, I should say. Operational procedures will continue to be tested and refined. Online courses and instructional practice will continue to be created. Virtual learning option information sessions for parents are planned, just as I said a moment ago. And then my last slide here, families are asked to commit to first full semester, and families will receive a commitment form via email. They'll be asked to respond within 2 weeks. Forms will be available on the district webpage, and printed copies will be available at the board office for those who need them. We're going to continue communicating with our family, staff, and community. We're going to continue to put out frequently asked questions on our website. We're going to continue to respond to questions that come in through the Google Forms. And we're going to continue working through all of the remaining questions. We ask people to visit the Black Tiger or Back to School page, Back to School 2020 page on cfalls.org, which is our website for the most current information at all times. So that concludes my portion of this piece, or at least for right now. Rachel and Julie are going to share with you MobiMax and Edmentum. And so I'll field any questions that you have right now. You've been asking them throughout, but go ahead.
Can I ask for 2 more next steps? One, can it be clubs and activities? What can happen and how can they happen? Because that one's coming up a lot.
I can answer that.
Education's got to be our primary focus. I get that, but people are shifting to that one as well.
Mm-hmm. I can address that one right now. Clubs and activities on your agenda. You have a number of clubs and activities that we are recommending hiring their advisors. A number of those situations, more will be coming, and we continue to. You're right. Education is our primary, academics is our primary focus, but our clubs and activities, particularly at our 6-12 level, are an important part of the educational experience. And so my response to a couple of our parents is that they're going to continue. They may look different. So that we may be using Google Meets, we may be using Zoom, we may be having meetings outside of the building or outside of the schools, or activities outside of the schools, but those activities we're anticipating they continue.
And that's what I'm asking for. What are going to be our guiding principles for that? As well as, are there some things that we can't do? Can we have a fall play?
Those answers I don't have.
Those
right
sorts
now.
of things as a next step, not
Right.
as of right now.
Right.
And then the other thing would be, what do we do with our support organizations, PTA, PTO, HSL, boosters? What, if anything, will they be? I understand we have some stuff about volunteers probably not going to be able to be in the building at this point, but can they plan events?
Thank you. We'll add that. to
Next
our-
steps, not today.
Right. We'll add that to our next steps.
The other question I had too was from folks who, that's children, students participate in the 6 district compact programs.
Thank you.
Would we still be providing transportation? Would their schedule still be similar to what it was in old school days? And then how would we handle the hands-on components if they're in urban forestry or remodeling construction and can't really sit at home with a jigsaw and make a, bookcase? How those kinds of things will be handled.
Well, thank you for that question. Our 6th district executive committee, the 6 superintendents and Mary Jane Stankina have had those conversations. And all of us are looking at our CTE program, 6 district programs, as kind of a separate entity, if you will. And Ms. Bogdan is working with her team here in Cuyahoga Falls, and really because Cuyahoga Falls can't drive the bus on 612 or on 6 district compact programs, and the other superintendents have to some degree acquiesced to what we need in those 2 districts because of that. And what I would say right now is that we're looking to try to be business as usual with our CTE programs. In other words, Monday through Friday in those programs, it's a separate issue. Our biggest problem in those situations is their non-program classes and the delivery of the non-program classes. And that's what Ms. Bogdan and her team are continuing to work through. And so our staff and our students in those situations are really looking at them as a separate unit.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you for your response.
Todd, we just don't have the space at the high school and our middle schools to have our kids come back for 5-day in-person teaching. Is that correct?
That's, yes.
Yeah, just want to make sure.
Some of our classrooms here are 500 square feet.
Yes, I understand. It's just, there are some folks in the community that want that 5 days back in person. And I understand our constraints here. So I want to make sure that we're all in the same understanding that is, what the true reasoning is.
It's how do we space them out if we're going to go all day, every day, how do we space them out in passing? How do we space them out in cafeterias? All of those kinds of things. It's a social distancing piece, and it's the flat out physical space in our classrooms.
Thank you.
Absolutely. We all want it to go back to some degree of normal, right?
Yeah.
Right.
We all do. But as I've said right from the very beginning, perhaps this is an opportunity for us to be able to reimagine and reinvent education.
Dr. Nichols, would you like comments that have come in on our emails now, or would you rather wait till Dr. Seifert and Studones are finished with their presentations?
That would be the
Board?
pleasure. That would be the pleasure of the board. I hope that I've addressed most of the issues that are coming in. I've read those comments previous to the meeting, and I hope that I've addressed most of those issues.
Board members?
Do we feel that we?
I would defer to Dr. Seifert and Ms. Dudones to give their presentation first and then have all of the information read.
Okay.
I'd like
Let's
to
do
go
it.
through a few more thoughts on the presentation real quick. I'm going to continue to say that I think on the front end, we should provide parents the options in 612 as to what days they think work best for their students. I understand that you're saying there's a process in place, but I think it makes more sense to just let them say Monday, Tuesday works for my family.
I understand.
Because one of the other things I'm hearing is that families' last names aren't always the same.
That's correct.
And family means different things to different people.
Yes,
It might not just be the people that live in that house.
I agree.
So
Or the children. Or you're right, or the two children don't have the same name either, and
Yeah.
it means they're split among schedules.
Yeah.
And we just,
Exactly.
we needed a way to be
Yeah.
able to
Start
divide them in
organizing.
half, instead of throwing it out there for open season and then having it split 60-40 or something like that, that we can't accommodate.
Right.
So that's where we started, and that's why we've suggested that there's a process in place that if you want to go Monday, Tuesday, you're scheduled Wednesday, Thursday, but you want to go Monday, Tuesday, that process is in place. So that's where we are right now.
And one of the other questions that I've been getting from people is, say my kid's a 6th grader at Roberts, and enough of the 6th graders decide that they want to go from home, that now we can reasonably accommodate all those 6th graders on 5 days. Would we look at the data in that way?
My hesitation is the return.
Right.
Is coming back the other way from that and making that transition. We certainly can look at the data in that way and ascertain whether it's possible to go 5 days based on information we receive about remote learning and so on and so forth. And we can do that, and we will. I'm just going to be honest with you. My hesitation is coming back. For example, I'm going to use this as an example. We send out the survey data. I got my class, K-5 class is limited to 20 students. That's really where I've stopped enrollment right now, K-5. All sections, 20 students. Out of that 20 students, I might have 5 in that section that want to go remote. So us as a school district, we really could backfill those 5 spaces, okay? And if we were looking at pure economics of our school district, we could backfill those 5 spaces and have $30,000, okay, extra revenue for our school district.
From
I don't-
accepting 5 open enrollment children.
That's correct, because that's where it is right now. I mean, we have taken care of all of our residential students and intra-district folks. All of them are taken care of with the 20 student cap. Okay? I have some room at some grade levels in some buildings that I'll fill to 20, but then it's all time stamped and then it stops. Okay, so those 5 students come out. Now, if I were looking purely economically for our school district, I would backfill those 5 spaces, okay, and take the $30,000 that comes with it. I am not going to do that. The reason why? I'm not going to recommend doing that. Reason why? At the semester, it may work well, may not work well. All 5 of those students may want to come back to that section. Now I got 25 and I don't have space for them because I've backfilled. And so I'm really hesitant about those kinds of changes. I'm not suggesting, Mr. Gomez, that I won't look at the data and those kinds of things. I'm not that rigid. I'm not going to say that, but I
Say
do want
it's possible, but don't plan on it.
Exactly.
That's,
Along that same vein, what do we do with families who move into the system when we've kind of capped a grade level at a certain school?
Well,
Because
and
we know some buildings are more transient than others.
that is correct. And that is a discussion point with student services, and that is a discussion point with student services. And frankly, if you looked at that slide 18 to 22, well, that's kind of why I stopped at 20.
Right.
Because I may have a couple extra spaces. I'm trying to hold on to a couple extra spaces just for those residential issues.
and then Dr. Nichols and I had a conversation last night because we had back-to-back meetings. So I've spoken with him about my personal feelings. What I'm trying to bring up tonight are the feelings that parents and community members are bringing to me.
Understood.
So,
And I appreciate the conversation.
yeah, we had a very positive conversation. We might disagree, but we can understand each other.
That is correct.
Yes. The one big thing that I'm getting from people is a lack of stability. I'm going to argue against myself in that point here as well, because they're concerned about fluctuating every week.
I share their concerns. what I have, I share their concerns. What we are experiencing is that the data comes out Wednesday evening, it's announced on Thursday, and we have Monday to make any kind of changes if we have to make a change. And so I absolutely share their concerns. The only way to overcome their concerns would be to be consistent at all levels and so on and so forth. And as we talked last night, and I shared with all of you today, the decision-making process in terms of the yellow and the orange is based on AAP. It's based on, I mean, I don't know if you saw a New York Times article today where, you know, all of the experts are saying, get your K-5 students there as much as you can in person all the time. And so that's really what I've based the decision on yellow and orange on. It is all of that research that was coming in. I'm worried about the transition too. I mean, that's going to be hard for our staff. It's going to be hard for our parents. It's just going to be hard. What I would share with you as well, just so everybody hears it and you hear it, you're probably all aware. But in my discussions across the state, school districts are pretty much in the same spot as what we just recommended to you today, following a color-coded system that is more restrictive as you advance through the levels and pretty consistently making the flip at red. I think Portage County, for most of the schools in Portage County are in the same situation. I just want to share that with you to give you, I don't know, some level of comfort that we're not alone in this, and we're not renegades in our decision making either.
I think the difficulty comes that if you're looking at the data, realistically, we're going to be orange and red a lot. We're going to hope we don't get the purple, and for a county of our size, it's going to be a while before we can get the yellow.
I don't disagree.
And so that's the concern that I'm hearing from families, that orange and red aren't that different in terms of the statistical data, and yet what's happening is different. So we could be experiencing weekly fluctuations at K-5 because of that. And that's the real concern that I'm hearing, is that orange and red area being different in K-5 when statistically it's not super different. And at orange, they say start limiting your non-in-house contact.
What I would say then is, I reiterate one more time that I've followed the research, I've followed the data, those kinds of things, followed the recommendations in my decision making. But that doesn't mean that anything is, what we've experienced is nothing is ever permanent in this situation. And so if we get into a fluctuating system like that, we may want to consider at that point in time making everything blended, or making everything, in person. I mean, we may want to consider that if we find ourselves fluctuating between orange and red a lot. That would be a piece that I would share with you. I've used the term a lot around here that, cement cures at different rates.
Mm-hmm.
Different types of cement cures at different rates, and that's really what we're experiencing right now. Is that this whole situation has changed pretty rapidly.
Dr. Nichols, I don't want to reduce this down to economics, because that certainly is never my focus. But at the same time, you mentioned in your presentation that we're probably 200 children that wouldn't be returning to us
That's correct.
as open enrollment kids. Initially I'm concerned that they want to be black tigers and we can't let them be. But then from the economic standpoint, those operating dollars are used to provide the programming that folks come to us for.
Mhm.
So in essence, by not having space for them, and I certainly totally support the the cutoffs on the class sizes and so on, and not packing those classrooms, and I totally understand and support it. But my question is there a way to think about finding some classroom auxiliary space? And I did have a couple of emails today on that. One asked about church rentals, and I wouldn't even want to go there with, just the security and the internet platform and the whole thing. But I'm just thinking, within our district, is there anything that we might consider space-wise
Well,
that
what-
could open the opportunities for more kids? And if the answer is no, I can accept that.
Okay.
I just would like to know that we explored that avenue.
Well, let me share with you what the economics, the revenue expenditure process would be associated therewith. So we have half of a Newberry that could possibly be available to us. But if we're going to accept more students, means more sections at this point. More sections means more staff. And so the only way then we would open sections, the only way we've done what we've done with open enrollment, the only way we've opened additional sections is if we met that revenue exceeds expenditure threshold. Okay. And so that's the only way. And if we went to Newberry, I need to have an administrator in charge over there. If there's classrooms, if I'm doing instructional activities and so on and so forth, I have to have an administrator there to be in charge. So those are additional economics that are associated
Right.
with adding sections. It is absolutely going to be $1.2 to $1.3 million of revenue lost at minimum. We may experience more. What we will certainly encourage is those to stay in the Black Tiger family through the Black Tiger Remote Learning Academy, and absolutely promote that as an option for our folks to stay with us, with our teachers. And then should this whole situation subside and we can return to some semblance of normal, then we can bring them back into the regular classroom settings. So those are additional economic issues that we would have to consider. We also have to consider the renovations that we haven't been in Newberry, that section of Newberry, for a while. We can't go to Schnee. You guys have been through Schnee. It's not in condition to
I really
use
don't think
additional
we can
classroom.
Go to Newberry,
Huh?
having toured it.
What's that?
Having toured Newberry, it's
Yeah, you are correct.
rough.
It is rough, and we would have to do, that's additional economic issues that we would have to bring those classrooms up to speed. So,
No, no, thank you, I understand, and,
Okay.
that's out there, so
right,
it helps me and it helps the listeners too, thank you.
absolutely. All right, so are we ready for Moby Max and Edmentum?
Couple more things, and I
Okay.
can be quick.
That's fine.
One of the things I would like is that once we get these classrooms set up, if we can do walkthroughs. And my intent in that isn't to say where the desks are gonna be or where the hand sanitizer is gonna be, but it's to see that for myself so that when people are asking me about it, I can tell them that I've seen that.
I have no problem. Somebody's taking notes on this, right?
And
Yeah.
I started doing that because that was really important to me. So, Tammy Brown, principal of Preston, we spent about 3 hours at her building, and we walked every classroom, and we were moving furniture and talking about, what's important to the teachers that stays, that's theirs, can it stay? What, what tables are used for centers, could they stay, could they not stay? And, it was important to do, and it was good conversation. It brought up a lot of questions, but we went through every single classroom and did that together. And I'm certainly hoping to do that with all of the elementary buildings, because they're also different and unique. And they, have different tiny rooms and different big rooms and things like that. Obviously, I know Silver Lake, I know which 2 rooms are gonna be the issue there, kind of thing. But I agree, I think that's really important. to be able to visualize that. And that's why we wanted to have those photos there, so that there's another layer of what everybody can really wrap their mind around for this whole process, because it's huge. It's huge to go from 3 feet to 6 feet. But when you see the difference, typical classrooms, they are about 3 feet. So when you walk into a classroom, they are about 3 to 4 feet apart, is what we discovered over at Preston. But then we could go to Price, and those classrooms are a little smaller. So it'll be a different feeling. So I agree, I think that's.
John and I have also talked about, John Wassilko and I have also talked about creating like a video tour, or a virtual tour, if you will. This is what a day in the life for a student looks like. You know, from bus stop to classrooms to all of those kinds of things.
And I think that speaks to the communication piece, because families are freaked out.
Yes.
With it, I mean, we can all share that thought. And I think we can do more than what we have done, looking at what Twinsburg's doing with their town halls, I think is something we can look at. We have a communications guy that can help us make some of those things happen now. So
That's right.
I think adding on things that we might not have otherwise done in terms of communication is going to be important. I want to ask a question in terms of communication about, is the newsletter thing happening, or is that just an idea? In the Google Drive, there was an idea about a newsletter.
That will be happening.
Okay.
You know, that is an action item. I want you all to understand that the last several days, these folks and John have been up till 2:00 in the morning creating this presentation for you, and we've been working with our task force. That's been our primary focus right now, is making sure that we have this ready to roll for you guys and for the community. And yeah, I need to say it out loud. These folks are up till 2:00 in the morning making this happen. And we can't commend them enough. We just can't. So.
Last two thoughts for me on this, I promise. I would like to advocate, and it's not in my nature, but for the people that were voluntold to be on this reopening committee, I think we should consider a stipend, because they're going through a lot of crap on it. It's very much not in my nature, you know that. So think about it. I'm not saying to do it. I'm just asking that it be thought about.
I like the idea that it might be after the fact, if that's what the board's pleasure is. I like that it might be after the fact, because
Because we never do anything after the fact.
That's why I said it's not my nature.
I know. But I'm going to say, from the standpoint of this, you know, every single person that was on that team wanted to be on that task force, and they were all there for the exact right reasons. And so it wasn't about money. It wasn't about anything other than their love for Cuyahoga Falls City School District and wanting to get it as right as we can get it.
And then the last point that I want to make, and it ties into probably what they're going to talk about, but people want to know where we're going to start educationally, because we know that we didn't cover everything last year, and we can't cover all that in a whole year this year. So
With that, that's a perfect segue.
that's their department anyway.
Hey, Todd,
Yes, sir.
I just want to make sure all of our parents will have the opportunity to make one of two choices. K through 12, they can either choose to have what would be in the K through 5 an actual face-to-face in our buildings, or the academy. And then 6 through 12 will have either the face-to-face blended model or the academy. Is that correct?
Everyone will have the opportunity to choose from option 1, which is face-to-face, K-5 through yellow, orange,
Yes.
red blended, purple, everybody's out.
Right.
6-12 blended through all 3 levels, and everybody out at 4. That's option 1. Option 2, Black Tiger Remote Learning Academy. Those are the 2 options. Everybody will have that choice.
Thank you.
Okay. Do you want the clicker?
No, I'm gonna work from here so that we can manipulate through through MobiMaps. But Julie and I both made a PowerPoint that it's more of the methodology and information behind why an online platform is valuable, how it helps our students learn, the scientific theories behind that. And it's broken up into why does this type of learning tool matter, that it's ESSA approved, parents and caregivers, you ask, you listen, so it's information from the survey. Talks about the integrated learning system approach, the diagnostics, assessments, and reports available, differentiation, classroom, community, and the connections with PBIS, and the ongoing professional development. If I were to go through this and this, maybe for a super long time, which I'm happy to do, because I want you to be familiar with the program and why it matters to us. So I would like you to decide if you want me to walk through this PowerPoint, I can. I've shared it with you on Google, as well as made the paper copy for you, as did Julie for Edmentum. I don't want anybody to not have the information that's important to substantiate why this is so valuable and important to us. So I don't want to shortchange anybody with this information, but I also don't want everybody sitting here until 10 o'clock.
For me, what's more important would be to see what it's gonna look like.
Okay,
And if we're recording that, hopefully to post later for families as well.
absolutely. Yeah, and this can be posted, Julie's can be posted. We're
But that's
completely,
just,
you know, we're comfortable with that. But like I said, there's a lot of methodology and the scientific reasoning behind why an online learning platform matters and what it can do for children. And that's very different than 20 years ago and 30 years ago, how those kinds of things are incorporated into instruction and why it's beneficial for our students and their future-ready skills that they need to be developing.
I'd like to look at this through the lens of a parent. You know, if you have something there that is something that I would see at home when I go to MobiMax to be with my child.
Okay, so I have access to student views
Okay.
right now, teacher view, and then the district overall view. That is right now, it's not beneficial, it's not helpful to us at all because our district isn't loaded into
Okay.
MobiMax. So once that's loaded into MobiMax, that might be another time to come back and share some other information. So for example, we don't have access to all of the reports, because if we were to run a report, there'd be nothing there. So, so you have one example. It's just a small example of a teacher that was using MobiMax last year. And we just wanted you to have a picture. And when I say we, I include Julie because she's definitely much more high-tech than I am, and I'm very comfortable admitting that. So she was helpful in this because we haven't received our professional development with all of this yet. So we have a lot of access to different things, and I want you to be able to see what a student would be seeing, and you can see a little bit of what a teacher would be seeing. But again, since we don't have our teachers loaded into the system, there's not as much to see right now. Okay.
I want to Zoom is about a 2-hour maximum before it starts this not recording. We're hitting right at the 2-hour mark on the
Okay. Do whatever you need to do.
Just don't want anything to be lost.
While he's checking that, may I ask a question? As I'm looking at the data that's provided to probably the parent, the student, and the teacher, I see that perhaps with identifying verbs, they received a score of 85. Is it possible for me to go back to that lesson and see if they were continuing to miss the same type of question or whatever? So I know that's where my intervention needs to take place.
So obviously, this is a shallower view of the information, but what's good about this is great for students' understanding.
Okay.
So
when we teach students about data and measurement, which is one of the strands for our math learning, they incorporate this into their mathematics instruction. They also incorporate it into goal setting for students. So they'll be able to take this learning and partner it with the NWEA MAP progress reports that students receive. And now they're gonna have another piece of data to marry that to. And so then picture our 3rd, 4th, and 5th graders, they will also have state data. So you have that triangulation of data that is something that we're lacking for elementary, is something that's a scientific piece of data that we can use to truly help identify students' needs. So this helps from the student perspective of understanding that. And that's a really great thing because we want students to take ownership of their learning. But then when you flip to the back of that page, you can see at the very top, when it says from March through May 9th. So this is a snapshot of what that student did. Now, I would imagine, and I didn't speak with this teacher about this, but I would imagine that they were taking this on a little bit more and a little bit more and a little bit more as her classroom was full. And they were spending more time on the online instruction. So she was getting into this information, or into MobiMax a little bit more. But you can look at our history with MobiMax. We have teachers that have been paying independently for MobiMax all the way back to 2013. So we have a lot of teachers that have experience with MobiMax. There's a lot of data that backs that up, but we have a lot of teachers that have been paying for it out of pocket because they value it so much. At Silver Lake Elementary, Hillary Geiger, she had, a lot of her teachers had access to it. There are certain teachers that really took off with it. So we have some data from what they were using, and that was really important in the decision making. So our task force, our elementary task force team, they had more information to be able to take back. Tracy Early from Lincoln, her 2nd grade team routinely uses MobiMax, and she couldn't say enough about how much her 2nd grade team really likes it and supports it. So we had some piloting data as well as the presentation. And then the vetting process, we looked through about 4 to 5 different programs to make sure that we would settle on what fit Cuyahoga Falls' needs the most. Because there's a lot of great programs out there. It doesn't mean that they're fitting for Cuyahoga Falls. So the final thing was taking it to the task force and letting those administrators and teachers just kind of go to town and research it, use it, play with it, go in and out of the lessons, have all of their brainstorming sessions. And they worked on it for at least 2 different meetings, but I think it was actually 3. And then they settled on MobiMax as being the resource that they felt like would be best fitting for Cuyahoga Falls. They did a really nice job. I appreciated the work that they did with that.
One of the things that was part of Dr. Nichols' presentation was that for the elementary children, the children's teachers would be providing daily online live instruction. Will that be the case with the kids that are going to be in online virtual school?
So the presentation of the instructional process for K through 5 will look a little bit different than 6 through 12. Our K through 5 teachers, they will be, they're gonna be running that.
Did I ask that question wrong? I'm specifically focusing on elementary.
Okay,
Okay, all right,
Okay.
thank you.
okay. But the comparison is with 6 through 12, they're gonna be using Edmentum, and they're just gonna have support. The K through 5 team, those teachers, they will be facilitating that instruction. They will be creating the lessons. They will have live lessons. They will have videotaped lessons. They will meet with all of their students at times. They will meet with small groups. They will have interactive lessons, just like they would if they were in the classroom. So for our remote learners, that looks different from the K through 5. It is definitely our teachers running those classrooms. Is that answering your question? So this is a supplemental piece.
She said that to answer your question succinctly.
Yeah.
You said online, live lessons.
Daily. That's what it says.
Yes.
Daily, online, live instruction. I'm reading it.
For the remote learning. And that's what we intend.
Right, and that's why we want to make sure that if parents are choosing that option, then they can make sure that their child can have access to technology from 8:30 to 3. That way there can be a schedule throughout the day. So they might do a classroom meeting at 8:30, and then at 9 o'clock, they might start with a mini literacy, chunked lesson, and then they might break that up into small groups, and a small group stays on and works with the teacher, and then a new group will come on, 20 minutes later. So that's why it's important that those students can have access to their technology and that resource all day long, and not say be available for, 2 hours during the day. And that's gonna be sufficient instruction for that child.
That's probably one of our biggest questions from parents is, I feel like I'm buying a pig in a poke here. I don't know what I'm signing up my kid for if I go virtual. So the more clarity we can provide our families on this, certainly that would be helpful.
I want to point out that a difference for us in terms of choosing MobiMax, Edmentum, our teachers, live instruction, those kinds of things, is we're not purchasing a canned curriculum.
Correct.
That's not what we're doing. We are trying to build parallel platforms.
Yeah.
So that our students can move in and out. Certainly these supplements become more mainstay as students are more in the remote situation than if they are in the in-person instruction, but there's still supplements that are used in-person, blended, and in a remote setting. Just becomes more of a crutch, if you will, or more of a supplement as you're moving outside of the classroom. But as Dr. Seeker said, we've heard loud and clear, and like you said, we've heard loud and clear that our folks expect their kids to see our teachers.
Right.
And frankly, that's the litmus test, right? Every student, every day, every opportunity. We innovate, we create, we personalize education for all. And it doesn't matter whether you're in person or whether you're remote. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Any questions before we get rolling?
Okay.
I don't know what I'm logged in as. Okay, well, we'll go with the student view first. Okay.
Buffering.
Okay, so when a fourth grader would log in, they would, they're gonna have options to see quite a few things. Now, the very first login that a student does, they take a diagnostic assessment. So a diagnostic assessment is giving us information about where the student is with their learning, what they need to be learning next, what are their next steps, and where is their best place for learning. So we call that their zone of proximal development. So where's their best place for learning? So the great thing about MobiMax is that MobiMax and NWEA MAP can talk to one another. So that information can be married together. MAP doesn't have any type of instructional piece. It's informational for us. MobiMax gives us that informational piece as well as it gives us another piece of data with the diagnostics, and then with progress monitoring, and then with assessments. So whenever we assess our students, we never want to have just one picture, right? That's not a very valid view of what our students know. So the great thing about MobiMax is it can give us another lens to look at what our students know, where a teacher might possibly need to reteach, and then where they're going to direct their learning from that point. MobiMax can be designed where students have their own individual learning path based off of that diagnostic. So it'll be very individualized. We might be in the same classroom, but I might be working at, maybe a 4.3 in my fourth grade learning standards. I've progressed to, fourth grade 3 months in, where somebody else might be at a 3.9. So they're going to get the sweet spot of learning through this. However, a teacher can also assign what she wants or he wants those students to learn. So it has both features to it. So this is the main screen. These are all of the different options that our teachers will have available to them. And that comes when you're looking at this bookend piece. This next one is where there are assignments. So teachers can put assignments in here, or it can be programmed based off of their diagnostic assessment. So for example, the first thing that would be in here would be a diagnostic, and that would be the only thing a student could choose. So they would have to take the diagnostic in order to proceed and move on. So Julie and I were walking through quite a bit of the assessments and the activities. And this quick check is something that we really found out that we liked. So we're going to walk through this a little bit.
Which two equations represent the statement 32 is 8 times as many as 4? Check all that are true.
Dr. Nichols, do you want to take the quick check?
Yes, I can see.
Are you seriously going to take it?
No.
Patty and I are, it's math.
I'm
8
just
times
gonna-
4 would be the first one.
And Susie.
I'm just going to start clicking, because it won't let you do anything if you don't answer your questions.
Mike sold his painting for $96. His painting sold for 8 times as much as his sketch.
Oh.
How much did his sketch sell for?
So the great thing about these is all of these questions and the way that appears is it resembles what the OST looks like for students. So the OST, it can read the questions to them. The students can make the pictures bigger. They can control the color of the screen, that kind of thing, which students love. They love being able to individualize it, that kind of thing. And so when Julie and I were individualizing it, there's a timer on it to make sure that they're not taking too long individualizing it and having fun, that they need to get back to their learning. What?
And then we were sad.
We were sad. So if you,
Select the situation that can be represented by the equation 7 times 2 equals n.
so what I want to point out is the complexity of the responses that are there. So this isn't just basic knowledge. This is students having to apply, having to put things together. They're going to have to synthesize the information that they already know. And obviously this is fourth grade, so it appears very different at the different grade levels.
Are the choices of answers read to them as well, or are they expected to?
Can be.
They can be. And is it available in different
David has
languages?
7
Yes,
appointments.
that's very beginning.
Carrie has 2 times as many appointments as David. Carrie has n appointments.
I'm very impressed by this.
Mhm.
I think this is going to be,
Very exciting.
it's very impressive from
Mhm.
Oh, I didn't answer.
We didn't answer.
First one.
Dr. Seifert not
For
doing
the
it.
party,
Not
John
doing very
ordered
well.
5 large pizza pies, which each have 12 slices of pizza. He also ordered 8 small pizza pies, which each have 8 slices of pizza.
See if we rush through it. Oh, see, it let us go ahead. We rushed through
Drag
it.
each number that is a multiple of 7 into the box.
So this is a skill that students have to, that they start working on very early on. And they have the ability to obviously, work on a task like this. Sorry.
A new restaurant plans on having 3 times as many customers each week. Which table below follows this rule?
The value of the digit 2 in the number 25,381 is 10 times greater than the value of the digit 2 in which of the following numbers? Select the equations below that represent the number 72,900.
Which of the following numbers
Oh,
can
yeah,
be
doing
rounded
such a
to
good
the
job.
Which of the following expressions are equal?
But when a student does something like
Complete the
this,
equation below. 300.
on the report, it'll say how long a student
Michelle
worked
is solving the
on the
equation
assessment.
9
So
times 17.
Good.
the assessment I worked on earlier today, I spent 4 minutes on. So that's obviously a red
A farm
light.
has
The student didn't
216
spend enough time
apple
on it.
trees. The trees were planted each.
From this data, it's easy to
Which
identify
figure
who
below
can
represents
receive
a fraction
intervention
equivalent
in
to
what area and
2/3.
who's ready for enrichment, correct?
Yes, it seems that way.
I mean,
Sorry, I was trying to.
That's all right.
Stop talking.
I'm thinking it's a quick identification to establish where you need intervention or enrichment.
Absolutely.
So the teacher doesn't have to spend a lot of time digging through all of that information to know, okay, this one's going to receive an advanced class with enrichment options.
So students that are advanced learners, identified as gifted, they go to town with this kind of thing.
Right,
They absolutely love it. They move very quickly, and that's one of our weaker areas, right, is our gifted learners
right.
being able to make more than a year's growth. This kind of learning is ideal for them because they know they can do whatever they need to, and they'll be challenged if they work harder. And that's an important skill for gifted learners because they'll often sit back because things come easy to them. So they don't learn that value of what hard work means because they're so used to things coming easy. But when they do this, they keep working because it's motivating. And now they're learning what that work ethic and that study ethic and what trying is all about. And this is risk-free. It's not intimidating. There's nothing scary about it. If they miss something, that's okay. They're not going to be embarrassed because it's their private learning. Where your gifted learners often, if they don't know an answer or they don't know something, they will shut down and not share with you. And this is something that they're going to keep on going. And since it's individualized, a teacher can talk with them and meet with them and work on that together.
Does this max out then at any particular grade level? For example, where does the shift take place from Moby Max to Edmentum as far as the skill level of
K through 8.
K through 8? So we've got kids who could go into pre-algebra using Moby Max.
We do. We were recommending the purchase of K through 5. However, we think that they're going to give us license for 6, 7, and 8. So we could individualize who would be using that.
Good.
So for example, there's teachers at the middle school that will contact me and say, I need this for this learner and this. And then I go and I find what the right learning is and then take that to the middle school for them.
Okay.
And then I help design what that learner would need because it might not be materials that the middle school has access to. So this is that same kind of thing that they would be able to use something that's appropriate. However, middle school students, the way this appears, I don't know what the 6 through 8, they would think that this is babyish. So they wouldn't want it to look like this.
But the option's there if they,
Definitely.
So all of the results would be found in this graph paperwork back here so that either it's easy access for our teachers as well as access for our parents and students to see. Is that correct?
So that's one of the things our parents asked for.
Yes.
They want something that they can use with their children at home. They want something that's easy to manage, that is risk-free for them too,
Mhm.
right? Because if technology is intimidating to a parent, they're not going to want to partner with their child.
Correct.
But if it's not, and it's something that they can problem solve through, they're going to work with their child. And that's the best way to make those home to school connections and to build the importance of education early on. When you build that foundation early on, that education is important and it becomes a part of your entire family. And what you do together is you learn together and you talk together and you think together and you problem solve together. That creates a lifestyle for those kids.
Okay.
And that's the kind of thing that we want for our students. So having this be a resource for parents to work on together, whether it's in that remote setting, the blended setting, or if students just have a couple different lessons that they need to work on when they're in person, but they get to do it at home, then it's all the better because it's building that foundation that kids need to realize that learning is what you're all about. Every day you're learning and you're learning something new. And that's how you fill yourself up and surround your days. And that's how you make your dreams happen.
Thank
So
you.
that's how you start that whole foundation. And this piece will be great. And
Yeah.
Hillary did share that her parents loved this.
Mhm.
So that was some good feedback that we received.
We take a brief look at just what the interface looks at for Edmonton. Just the interface, just to see what it looks like. And then maybe we'd have them come back in October or something and talk about how it is being used. It's one thing for us to talk about how we can use it, it's another to have a conversation about how it is being used and what we can do with it.
Hey, Rachel. Does MobiMax have the ability to show the students maybe what they haven't completed yet? So when they do their login and they're on that, I refer to it as the home page.
Uh-huh.
If there is something that they were assigned and they haven't gotten that done yet, is there something that pops up on that home page to alert the parents?
It's right here, so you can see,
So-
it tells
so
you
the-
in progress,
Okay,
and then this one, it just tells you the date assigned, so that means the student hasn't started it yet.
And
perfect.
those are there because I took that formative assessment. So those, that it populated,
Okay.
what learning standards I scored 0 points on. And so I assigned those lessons to myself, right, as a fourth grader. So those lessons then populated right
Gotcha.
there.
All right,
So it gave me a whole list of the standards. So then the teachers can look at the standards and prioritize what standards are we focusing on with our main instruction right now? And is there something that this child would benefit from me adding in? So there's that huge flexibility piece of designing individualized instruction, which is just amazing, and that's what we want for our students. But there's also that way to have this be an extension of what the pacing guide is telling us.
all right, thank you.
So, I think I'm good with that, Banner, but thank you. So with Edmentum, so with the secondary, with the 6 through 12, there will be some online live instruction. I plan on asking the teachers to use our new math series rather than the Edmentum courseware because we just invested a lot of money in
I'm glad you said that, because when you said we weren't buying a packaged program, it is a packaged program. It is, it's providing yes, it is.
Okay.
It's not our
I mean-
math program we just adopted, it's not our social studies program we just adopted, it is that program.
I mean, it's a program, but we're using, like Dr. Siebert said, we're using our teachers in conjunction with, and we're planning on doing the same thing, like with Edmentum. The courseware is here, it's created, but once the teachers know who the students are, then they're going to personalize. We're not asking the teachers, it's not going to be, they're just gonna plop it in there. and then say, contact me during office hours. They're going to personalize it based on the students that they have. And there will be expectations, and actually, Mr. Hodge and Dr. Seegert and I started working on our remote learning plan for the state. And, one thing we had to come up with was, what does that look like for our students? And as we thought about this online environment, we really need the teachers to be hired for this academy to help us flesh
Yeah.
that out, because it's going to look different at both levels, first of all. And it's going to depend somewhat on the learners. At the high school level, again, just like we did in the spring, they're going to have to adjust based on the time of day. And we do want the teachers to be able to do some live instruction. There are virtual labs in here, but whichever high school teacher may apply to do the science may also want to do some labs with them. They aren't necessarily going to want to rely exactly on what Edmentum has for each lab that is available and that sort of thing.
So, can I?
Sure.
Okay. So we know based on research that the two biggest change makers for students' learning is having them be empowered, so having them take on that learning themselves and to be motivated to learn, and the teacher. Those are the two pieces that can have the biggest effect size for student learning. So we don't want these pieces driving instruction. We want them to supplement instruction because it's valuable for that. But our drivers are our teachers. They're the ones driving instruction. They're the ones that actually make that connection with the students to help empower them, to help them want to learn, to figure out what they need to do to let that student on fire so that they're excited about the learning that's going on in the classroom. If we stick with this, that's not going to happen. So that's why it's important that, yes, it is a canned curriculum, but we could probably argue that with a lot of things. It's how we're going to use that. So there's a lot of things that if we just followed what the teacher's resource would say, would be canned. But we believe in our teachers, and we believe in supporting them with making sure that they're using best practices, evidence-based instruction, and that they have resources that they can individualize for students and what they need. And this is one of those pieces that we think can really help do that.
It's a both and approach.
Right, exactly. And we've got this great CTIS team. I mean, I can't say enough about them, they're going to help support these teachers that apply and are chosen to help.
I think the real key here, we have to have some kind of something if we're going to run a Black Tiger virtual
Sure.
academy.
So let me show you. Oh, I'm sorry.
All right, go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay, I apologize. I have a tendency to do that, as Dr. Nichols knows. So I cut these long. So this is an example. This is the Edmentum. This is something that they gave me access to. So as you can see, these are like their little symbols. So there are 4 students in this sample class that are falling behind. So running backwards. 2 that are just a teeny tiny bit behind. No students that are right where they're supposed to be right now. 1 student that's a little bit ahead of the game. Nobody with something locked that needs unlocked right now. And I tried clicking on that. I don't know exactly what that symbol means.
Taken to the next level.
Yeah, it might be that they rushed through something. Yeah, I love that. Oh, my login.
Oh.
See what happens?
So Rachel and Julie, is it possible that there would be teachers who are using both MobiMax and Edmentum?
Oh, yes. So we expect that all of the elementary teachers will be using MobiMax in the classroom because it will be providing.
In some way.
In some way, it will be providing that data.
But also Edmentum as well.
Yeah, and then the nice thing about the Edmentum is that they can pull from the courseware, and I'll show you that as well. They can pull from there to help supplement for their remote learning or when they're not doing live instruction, or when they are, especially with the virtual labs and things. That's why I wanted to show you that one in particular.
So it's pretty fascinating that,
Oh, ready to score, that's what the timer means.
that high school students, when they're taking biology and they have to dissect things, or physics and they have to do an experiment, that they can have these virtual labs, and the students, I mean, they can't hold things, they don't have that tactile kind of experience, but they can get that visual experience, and then data is presented to them. So it's pretty fascinating how they can have so much of a great experience, even though they're learning through a remote setting.
So they don't actually have to pit the frog any longer.
They don't.
I'll sign up for that class.
So,
I didn't have to hit the frog.
again, this is a sample that they
I said,
create
play
to
with it
share
the
as a
day before
demo.
it was dead
So,
and dissected.
My friend Carl, my fake friend Carl here, is a 10th grader with a fake student ID. It tells you when he last accessed. So it tells you he's slightly off pace. He has a current grade of a B, but overall his course grade would be an F because it's intended to be a semester-long course. It shows you that out of 33 activities for the semester, he's completed 42%. And no time on task right now, but 455 tries. So that, obviously, if it were a real student, it would be a little more helpful.
Right.
But you can see the things that he has attempted and things that he hasn't done. So he never took the student orientation. He never accessed the syllabus. So that might be why Carl's not so successful. He didn't do the pre-test or the discussion. So you can require a pre-test as the teacher, or you can make it optional. So, and then you can see the things that he did. The star means that the student has mastered it, and the teacher sets the level for mastery. Do you want it at 70%, 75%, 80%, and so on? These are the points scored, and then you can click on these to see actually how they did, or to see it. I had one that I wanted to show you in particular.
So when a high school teacher is conferencing with Carl, they can pull this up together and they can walk through and talk to Carl about the kinds of things that he needs to do to help himself be more successful. So that's one of the things that, as a high schooler that's in the Black Tiger Learning Academy, that's something that they would be doing. They would be conferencing with the students individually. And then if the students need additional help, then that's something that they certainly can do remotely. And they can help with additional lessons, pulling other resources if they need to.
So this is just one type of activity that Carl hasn't completed yet. It's the effects of exercise on muscles and heart rate. And then it goes through, here's the objective. Talks about what you're doing, why you're doing it. It gives all sorts of tasks, hypothesis and data collection, analyzing and extending, testing muscle fatigue, and then planning an investigation. And then what are you doing? You're measuring your pulse. Here's the materials you need to gather. Make sure you're staying safe. And then it goes through how to do it, and then it's actually, he has to actually type something in there. And then collecting data with different trials. And then another trial, and then making, how much do you think your pulse will increase during the two activities? And then another question, perform the two activities you chose for a period of 10 minutes each and record your data, so on and so forth. And then these down here in green are like example answers that would have been given. Then he has to draw a line graph. So you can see these are, not just simple point and click types of things.
We have focused as a district a lot on depth of knowledge, and just by walking through that, you can see all the levels of depth of knowledge in that. So it's much more than just basic information. But if the students don't have the basic information, have nothing to do with.
Right.
So then they can take that information and they can start synthesizing it, and then you have the different subject areas being integrated together.
And then what did you see in the graph? Were your results, was your hypothesis accurate? And then when he's all done, he has to finalize it and submit it for grading. There's a scoring scale there for him so that he can see how he's being graded. There's a dictionary. He can have narration turned on or off. He can have sentences read aloud to him. He can have different languages translated, calculator, math tools, highlighting tools.
So we're getting all the positives that we saw previously, but just in a more mature.
Right, exactly. Yep. And then the other thing, so for flex assignments, so this is the value of for teachers who want to integrate this into the blended, or it's going to be awesome specifically for the remote learning academy. So like here's my sample class that I created. When you create your sample class, and I did share the presentation with you on Google because there's a link so you can see all the courses that are available are hyperlinked. Anytime you do an assignment, you can share it with just one student. You can share it with all the students in class so that you have that differentiation available. So again, if you have, if you've given a pre-assessment, then you'll know whether all the students need the assignment or not. But then when you go to create a new assignment, which is super easy to do,
Upright. Previously.
especially when the computer works quickly. You can click on new assignment.
This section here looks a lot like Brightspace or
Yep. Poetry.
Blackboard or what have you.
Here are my instructions, and whatever it can be.
Right.
Take a walk outside, then follow the instructions in the assignment. Then when I scroll down, I choose, do I want it to be all the students or just my friends Mandy and Cole? Scroll down, I choose my class that I want it to be for. There we go. And I don't know why, but it's not dragging, but there's something I missed, but you get the idea. You just drag it over there and then you click save. And then you can put the due date on the assignment. You can leave it just in a list and that sort of thing. And then it shows up in the list like you saw in the previous section for the students to complete.
So how long is this information retained? Does it become like a working portfolio?
Right, so it saves it, in there for the students. This is something that can be assigned through, they're doing a Google integration this summer. So that students will be able to sign on through Google, or teachers can assign it through Google. And so that will have to be up to our remote learning academy teachers. It's gonna kind of have to be dependent. And then, what we will have, blah, 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 blah. In terms of, like, if they're doing a writing piece, I'm sure there are teachers will still have them do that via Google Classroom. If they're doing a multiple choice piece as is in here, I'm sure they'll have them just do it in here and then just record the grade. All grades from the grade book are, let me go back there. Can be exported, and then they can just be uploaded right into Progress Book.
So
that
as students
parents
are,
don't have to go to different places for grades, and everything at the end of the year goes right in, to the system. And, when we change it this semester, we don't have any problems with that.
that's my thought. As kids are building portfolios, if you will, they can create one and use this process, moving that, whatever.
Right.
And it's stored where? On Google? From year to year.
Oh,
I start
Right.
third grade and I'm
Sure.
going to start to create my working portfolio, if you will, that will travel with me through the end of middle school, perhaps into high school. Where do I build my portfolio and where do I retain that information?
our
So that,
students have been doing that in Google at this
that's what
point,
I'm asking.
For the most
Okay.
part, and then the younger kids,
The younger kids haven't had anything like that before.
Oh, well,
So that's a really good question.
sorry, I still think like a teacher.
well, they have their data,
I mean,
they have their data
They have their
binders.
data binders, but they don't have
Mhm.
something like MobiMax that can house that information from year to year. So that's really interesting. Our intention is for the elementary students to continue on with their data binders. However, we feel pretty strongly that probably needs to be switching over to a more electronic presentation
Okay.
versus the paper, where previously we were really only considering fifth grade to doing that. So that's really intriguing.
Can I just ask my
Thinking
fellow
about that.
board members, is there more information you need
We're
to
two
see
and a half
tonight
hours
to
in.
make
Yeah.
a decision
No.
tonight? Because I don't want to stop if you need more information to vote.
No,
We
I'm,
can come back.
yeah.
No,
Thank you.
Close that.
Thank you.
Did you get any other emails on board
Just
site?
people that had questions regarding some of the presentation.
Okay.
So nothing that we
Nobody
can
who wishes to address the
more
board?
questions regarding the presentation.
Did you get Gina Wilson?
I did not.
The ones that came during the meeting, I just forwarded to you guys as they came.
We'll get back to those.
But they were mostly, like questions that they wanted regarding things that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Julie.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, Rachel.
Talk too much.
No,
no,
you.
no.
we'll see you
We'll
again
just
on this
have a
topic, I'm
empty
sure.
agenda. Okay, so I'll go ahead and read our comments from the public that were submitted online regarding this issue. The first one is from Alicia Coco. Good afternoon. I want to start by acknowledging that this pandemic has truly created a no-win situation for our district when it comes to reopening of our buildings. There is no black or white answer that will make all parents happy. Keeping all students learning at optimal levels and ensuring the safety of our students, teachers, support staff, and community. My concern with the current plan that was, quote, leaked, unquote, on Monday has many components. I have many questions that will need answered before I could make the most educated decision for my family. Opening K-5 on a level-based system will create a consistency issue for working parents that need to find childcare. Students need to be able to anticipate a regular schedule. Children thrive on knowing what is happening and when, even if that's a consistent 2 days in, 3 days virtual schedule. Safety and social distancing is a concern for teachers with 5 days in the building, especially with my anticipation that masks will not be required at the elementary level. I was satisfied with the 2 days in, 3 virtual days for my daughter, knowing that class sizes were reduced and there would be cleaning in between. Without that guarantee, I'm tentative to send her back. I also feel like the option to do all virtual should be on a 9-week quarterly basis. More parents would commit to this if we knew it wasn't set in stone until holiday break, if it isn't working for our student. I also feel strongly that students on an IEP and those that need more intervention should have the opportunity to safely go to the building 5 days. Thank you for all your hard work and commitment to this district. Ultimately, district success during this time will depend on a consistent open communication with the community and parents. This includes having a personal avenue for parents' concerns to be answered. I believe more than a Google Doc is necessary, perhaps an online question and answer session led by administrators and board members in each specific school. This would create smaller audiences with questions specific to their children's education and building. I will continue to be a positive voice for this district and fight for us to be better together. Alicia Coco. Second letter is from Sunny Matthews. Hello, my name is Sunny Matthews. I am a parent of a 4th grade student. I'm writing to tell you my preferred method would be online only if we hit the top level of the state's COVID chart. If we stay where we are or decrease 2 days on or 2 days off, my kiddo has severe asthma. I have health issues as well. This virus isn't something we know too much about. We should not take it lightly. I know people are struggling with childcare and the loss of their kiddos' education, but health concerns should rule anything else. I know a friend who has a kiddo sick with disease. Her son is at death's door and she can't help him. Hard decisions have to be made to make sure that others don't fall victim. My grandma passed of COVID as well. It's a long and painful road. I know at least 20 people, including 5 local people, 2 Cuyahoga Falls residents, who have been sick for months. People act as though they're willing to take the risk, but once it hits their family, they will regret it. My kiddo is really struggling with being at home. She hasn't seen her friends since the day schools closed. My only solace is that she has been safe at home. I listen to her and express my sorrow for her lost summer, but I know she is alive. Being on quarantine is not new to me. My brother had cancer, and when he got treatment, we had a similar life. It's hard, and some families will have a tougher time emotionally and financially with it. That's not a situation you can take lightly, but if we band together as a community, we can keep people safe. I don't understand those who say, well, we got to live life, or I am healthy, so I'll be okay, or I don't care enough about you to wear a mask. I don't understand how folks would prioritize eating out and doing activities over just ending this through a closure for a while. When did it become American not to care? When did we begin to show your patriotic duty by expressing your personal right to be selfish above all else? When did our society reach a point where we don't care about each other? We don't care unless our own interests are at stake. We just don't care. Let's be the exception here in the Falls. Let's help create safety nets and develop an online program for our kiddos and an in-person system as needed to limit contact. Let's make sure we show Black Tiger pride. Again, that was Sunny Matthews. This one is from Paulette Dick. I'm writing today as both a parent and employee, and I have a few questions, concerns about returning to school in the fall. As a parent, I have a high schooler. If we choose them going to school for the 2 days a week, can we change our mind and have them go to full online? Or are we stuck with the decision that we made? How do you plan on social distancing kids in the classroom, hallways, and lunchroom? Is someone going to be cleaning common areas on a regular basis, such as restrooms, door handles, and desks? My child has asthma. I know that excuses her from wearing a mask, but I do not feel safe with her going without one. If need be, will she be able to step away from everyone to take her mask off to get some fresh air? What is going to happen if there is a positive case of a student or staff member at school? As an employee, what is going to happen if there is a positive case of a student or staff member at the school? How is the district going to handle lunches at the elementary building? How will the students and the staff be safe? Will the district be providing us with masks / face shields and hand sanitizer? Who will be responsible for taking the temperatures of the students and the staff? How can we distance ourselves from students while we're serving lunches? Thank you for your time. And that was Paulette Dick.
This is Ms. Zimmerman. Replies. It should be right here.
You received that in the form.
But it applies to
that I
this
shared
topic.
with you as board members earlier.
This next one is Courtney Zimmerman. Dear members of the Cuyahoga Falls Board of Education, I do not envy the decisions you and our educators have to make regarding opening schools in the midst of the COVID-19 crisis. My husband and I are working parents. Our son is to start first grade at Silver Lake Elementary, and our younger son is in pre-K. When we received the notifications about the proposed skeleton plan to have students in school 2 days a week and virtual learning 3 days a week, I was very concerned with our family's ability to carry out part-time virtual learning. I'm a self-employed consultant, and though I have flexibility, I'm also the only person running my business. I'm not confident I could give my sons the academic attention they need and continue to run my business effectively. I dare say this is a dilemma that many parents are struggling with right now. I sent a comment to this effect soon after the initial announcement, and we began researching various options, including private school, modified work schedules, childcare alternatives, and other options. We would prefer to keep our son at Silver Lake Elementary, but we are not sure what our decision will be. That said, my feelings on school reopening have changed since my initial comment to the school district 2 weeks ago. COVID-19 cases and outbreaks are increasing, and it appears that further lockdowns may be in our future. Whereas previously I was eager to get children back in school full-time, I am now unsure. I'm willing to see students back in school, but I do not agree with some political leaders who are saying that school must resume full-time at any cost. I and the other parents in our school district are relying upon you to make the best decision for the health and safety of our students, teachers, staff, and families. I do not have the answers, but I ask that you please make your decisions using the best information you have from qualified public health, education, and medical experts, and not based on the sweeping statements of one politician or another. One solution I would like to propose is that you consider moving to a year-round school calendar. Even before the COVID-19 pandemic, I was convinced of the benefits of a year-round school. Some of my family members who live in North Carolina have children on a year-round school schedule and have had a very positive experience. Year-round school is no longer a fringe theory, but a proven strategy that has been implemented successfully in many places. Students attend school the same total number of days per year, but rather than one extended summer break, they have 3 to 4 breaks spaced throughout the year. As a former summer camper, there was a time when I would have fiercely resisted this idea, but now I understand that camps and other enrichment activities still occur, just at various times throughout the year. The 2020-21 school year already promises to look unlike any school year we have seen. It is almost a certainty that it will be disrupted by closures, varying levels of virtual learning, and health and safety concerns. Planning now to spread the school year out across 2020-2021 allows us more flexibility to deal with issues related to the pandemic while ensuring our students receive the academic and social growth that they need. Then, as the COVID-19 threat diminishes, we will be able to move seamlessly to a year-round school calendar that provides more consistency, stability, access to services for at-risk students, better academic outcomes, and lower levels of stress. for teachers and students. Thank you for your consideration. Stay safe and best wishes as you navigate these difficult decisions. Sincerely, Courtney Zimmerman. Those are our comments from the audience virtually this evening, and we thank you for sending these to us to read. All righty, well,
Are there any additional comments from the board, tweaks that you want us to make? Otherwise, we're gonna roll it. We're gonna roll.
I would just like to thank probably for every one of us, and I know I shouldn't speak for other people, but I know that we're all so grateful to the people who have donated the time during their summer vacation to put these plans together for us. And as you said, the long hours that it took. And they're doing it out of the love of our Cuyahoga Falls school system, and it's so deeply appreciated that hopefully they know that. We applaud them.
It's important to note that there is no plan that's going to satisfy everyone's simultaneous.
Right.
There's no right answer here.
No.
this really doesn't have to do with the actual instructional pieces of our program, but in addition to what's been proposed, and I certainly value the work, I think once we get this plan in place, then all the other kinds of work that you talked about begin. How do kids pick up their lunch, or how kids do whatever, and I understand that. I was happy to hear that we will be having opportunities for parents to learn how to navigate these technology sorts of avenues that are unfamiliar to them as well. I'd still like to endorse some old school kinds of things, of having parents in to classrooms before school starts for open houses and meet the teacher and have a face in front of their child. I especially feel strongly about this for all our learners, but especially our K6s and 9s who are transitioning, especially Ks who have no concept of school and may find themselves with a Chromebook and being asked to somehow respond when letters aren't even in their vocabulary. I also know that our folks know this, but I think it bears saying, we know that kindergartens are quite different from fifth graders. And even in an elementary program, that K-5 stretch is big. Keep in mind, sixth graders are very different from 12th graders. When we constantly talk about 612 as if they're all 18, drive to school, have jobs, and it's not true. My neighbor's 11 and he'll be starting, and he's little, and we got to keep these things in mind. Just like we don't expect K to look like 5, we can't look 6 to look like 12. And we just have to be awfully, awfully careful when we start grouping kids, that we don't paint them with all the same brush. And on that note, where are we on our agenda? I think we are ready for,
Item F.
I'd like to make a motion to approve all items in the treasurer's consent agenda.
I'll second.
we've been seconded. Discussion?
We gotta do that before you talk anyway, Christy, so getting that part out of the way.
Getting it out of the way. All right, this is not a whole lot other than standard stuff in here. Return of advances from last year, just back to the general fund now, that we advanced to cover the grants at the end of the year, and the permanent appropriations for the beginning of the fiscal 21 school year. I think that's all.
Where are we?
Item F.
Yeah, you made a motion to, before the recommendation,
Yeah.
you made a motion. And we're at
To
discussion.
approve all items on consent agenda.
Okay.
Treasurer's consent.
I'm just
Item F.
catching up. Go ahead. I'm sorry, Christy.
That's okay. That was it. Unless anyone has any questions.
Just a quick one on, if we do take the $1.3 million open enrollment hit, how will that impact our forecast and so on?
That's going to be in conjunction with a lot of things. Obviously, that is a large number. The state right now is continuing at the levels that they cut us for last year. It's not necessarily set in stone, but as they're giving us our payments, they're going forward with that expectation. It could fluctuate, but we're hearing that it's pretty much probably going to be the same as last year. So for us, it's a little under $1 million. Which is better than what we had forecasted, which was 10%. This is only 6%. So that would be a helpful offset, hopefully, to if that were to happen. I did look today, some of the money that's coming down from the state that they had set aside, the $100 million from their relief funds. It looks like we're going to get around 200,000 of that. If I remember correctly from looking at it, looked at a lot of different ones. We'll get about 200,000 in addition to what we've already received, the 500,000. So that will be helpful too. There's a lot of moving parts with everything that's going on. So it's definitely something I'm keeping my eye on. Hopefully, like Dr. Nichols said, those students, even if they cannot be here in person, will continue with the Black Tiger Academy, and we will continue to receive them those dollars.
All right, are we ready to vote? Should we roll call them, please?
Ms. Moffett?
Aye.
Ms. Schofield?
Aye.
Ms. White?
Aye.
Mr. Gomez?
Aye.
Mr. Martin?
Aye.
Item G, Treasurer CFO's business, Mrs. Christie Starkey.
I'd like to recommend the board approve the June 2020 investment schedule and monthly spending report.
So moved.
I'll second. Moved in second. Little discussion here, Ms. Starkey, please.
Yes. So a couple things. Let me go here. We can pull up Red Tree. We'll just start there. As you can see, not a bad month again because we're locked into those rates that we were in. So we received a little over $6,000 in interest from our investments there. So that's always a good thing. If you go back and look at the interest overall for June, I believe the total is a little over 11,000. So that's pretty consistent with the last few months, even with the economy and the market where it's at. It's down overall, down from last year, but not down as much as would have been expected. If I look today at what Star Ohio dipped from last year, it was about 26% down. We are not that far down percentage wise due to Red Tree and Huntington, which we've gained some additional funds from by changing the account. So while we didn't bring in more than last year, it's not probably a big a loss as we could have expected given where some of our funds were at and what we got locked into before all this happened. Let's go down to the one that says May forecast FY20. So this is a comparison and I did just put these up on there, but because I knew I was going to talk about them and I wanted them to be up here. So this is a comparison of where we were at with the 5-year forecast in May compared to where we ended. So as you can see, revenues, we had collected most of the revenues by the time May came because taxes were complete. We pretty much knew we were going to be with the state foundation. So the difference was about little over 0.5% increase to the better from what we had projected. Going down to expenditures, you can see that it is, again, it's about 2%, little under 2% under overall what we projected. The big one in capital outlay is just some of the timing because a lot of those projects for the emergency levy happen in the summer. The payment of them will split a lot of the times over June or July. So even though they may have been projected or in the plan for last year, we may not fully pay that until July or August after the project is fully complete. So looking down all the way at the bottom, you can see we had projected 10.293, and then we ended up about 10.953 million. So it difference of about 6% of that total there of what we had projected. It was 6% higher. And then at the bottom, we had projected a cash carryover of 18.26 and ended up with so close to 20% at 19.81. So a little bit, that's about 1.55. So that's where we sit right now.
I love this chart.
And then if you
Thank
go
you.
back, I have another one that compares the end of last year to this year. Same exact setup, actual numbers, where we ended. So this year we brought in a little less revenue. Obviously that's due to state foundation. We had full amount last year in fiscal 19, and obviously we had our cut this year. But still overall, only down 0.36% from last year. So even with that cut, had that not happened, we would have had a large increase. Expenditures were down 4.5%. I would attribute it, a lot of it you can see to the reduction in force was a large part of it. You can see the salaries and benefits decrease this year quite a bit. So if you go down to the bottom, the big number there, we went from 11.64% cash carryover to the number I just mentioned, a little under 20%. So that's a great increase from year to year.
Absolutely. Thank you.
So we will, I'll get started working probably now on the forecast for November now that everything's closed out for the year. But those are promising numbers.
Yes, they are.
Going forward. So.
Questions for Ms. Starkweather? Thank you so very much. Roll call, please.
Ms. Schofield.
Aye.
Ms. White.
Aye.
Mr. Gomez.
Aye.
Mr. Martin.
Aye.
Ms. Moffett.
Aye.
I'd like to recommend that the Board of Education approve the following donations, or the donations as they are listed.
So moved.
I'll second it.
Moved and seconded. Discussion?
And just want to thank these folks for their generous donations to Richardson Elementary School. Again, things are still not the best out there, and want to make sure we recognize folks in the community as well as any companies, corporations that help donate to help us keep our costs down.
We certainly accept with gratitude. Roll call, please.
Ms. White.
Aye.
Mr. Gomez.
Aye.
Mr. Martin.
Aye.
Ms. Moffett.
Aye.
Ms. Schofield.
Aye.
Last, I'd like to recommend the board approve the attached resolution submitting the question of the renewal of a tax levy for the purpose of current tax expenses of the Cuyahoga Falls Library to the electors of the Cuyahoga Falls City School District pursuant to sections 5705.19D and 5705.21 of the revised code.
So moved.
I'll second.
Moved and seconded.
I'd
Discussion?
like to, Laura Searle, who I've worked with on this, she would have liked to be here. I told her we were at our limit, so she would be able to watch on YouTube if she's still out there at 9:30. But she wanted to be here to be able to thank all of you and let you know that she appreciates it. So I told her I'd pass that along.
Discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Gomez.
Aye.
Mr. Martin.
Aye.
Ms. Moffett.
Aye.
Ms. Schofield.
Aye.
Ms. White.
Any comments for us this evening?
We're good. It's hot. That's
Item 8, Superintendent CEO Business Consent Agenda.
I'd like to make a motion to approve all items in the superintendent's consent agenda.
I'll second.
Moved and seconded. Dr. Nichols, you're up. Anything? Any
The
highlights?
Consent agenda.
One quick
No
question,
highlights?
can you give us a little information on Mr. Myers? He was a late addition.
Yeah, Mr. Myers is coming to us from Bedford City Schools, and he's occupying a dean of students role there as well. And so he will be joining us at Bullock as the middle school assistant principal. He is a former middle school science teacher. Worked in places such as Garfield Heights in Nordonia. He's a Nordonia grad, Macedon in Nordonia. He's a Nordonia grad. and went to Baldwin Wallace to do his undergraduate degree as well.
Thank you.
He also expressed thank you to the board for recommending this contract tonight. He wanted to be here, but again, we're full minutes. Plus, it's also his anniversary. So I think it wasn't.
You made the better choice.
Yeah, definitely hired a smart man. Roll call, please.
Mr. Martin?
Aye.
Ms. Moffett?
Unfortunately, I have to abstain.
Ms. Schofield?
Aye.
Ms. White?
Aye.
Mr. Gomez?
Aye.
Item I, Superintendent CEO's business, Dr. Todd Nichols.
Catching up with you. Facilities construction update, first and foremost. Oh, okay, all
Oh.
right. Facilities construction update.
That's what-
No.
Wait a minute.
Edmonton.
Contract for
Yeah,
services.
mentioned.
Oh, that's right.
Okay. I'll make a motion that we approve the contract between our school district and Edmonton.
I'll second.
Moved and seconded. Discussion, roll call.
Ms. Moffett?
Aye.
Ms. Schofield?
Aye.
Ms. White?
Aye.
Mr. Gomez?
Aye.
Mr. Martin?
Aye.
I make a
Okay.
motion, we approve the contract with the school district in Moby Max.
I'll second.
Moved and seconded. Discussion, roll call.
Ms. Schofield?
Aye.
Ms. White?
Aye.
Mr. Gomez?
Aye.
Mr. Martin?
Aye.
Ms. Moffett?
Aye.
Okay.
Update, Dr. Nichols?
Awesome. All right, so now.
Time's up.
Yep, exactly.
Oh, my goodness.
Now it's time for the construction update. As I shared with you in your board notes, we had correspondence with our council and our banker, and our council has had conversation with with other clients. And I shared with you that in another district, the superintendent treasurer had a meeting with OFCC. Senate Bill 4 was passed to bail out the current districts with project agreements, not a stimulus, to speed up the process for those who have not been approved by the commission. That would be us. We're told not to anticipate any updates until September. Commission has to prioritize the current projects and then determine which of the waiting districts are within a 2-year period. Those outside a 2-year period for funding will be eligible to start out. So the determination of whether we are in or out of that 2-year period, which is scary.
So Dr. Nichols, on that, would it be to our advantage to be in that beyond 2 years' time so we could go to ELP and then take change and then start?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
And then to that end, again, TDA was in here the other day. We were talking about spaces in classrooms, but we also talked about what would we be able to do if we were to be approved to make that transition and program. And so our local share dollars is $80.6 million, and that would allow us to do all of the space, all the space associated for grades 6 through 9, like the mechanicals and shared spaces and so on and so forth. The Performing Arts Center, the stadium, demolition of Bullock and Newberry, and $10 million worth of the 10th through 12th grade space, such as the high school gymnasium or something like that. That's what we'd be able to do with our $80.6 million. And then when the $33 million came in from the state, we finished the project. Okay.
So we wouldn't necessarily be able to do the high school space in its entirety and set the middle school space dependent upon the $33 million?
Yes, if I'm understanding your question right.
Because I think, if maybe I'm misunderstanding, but we're looking at if we're approved to make the transition change, we would look to build middle school space first, as opposed to building high school space first. And
Which was part of our plan at the beginning because of the demo at Bullock.
I just want to make sure that we are if we make that transition, that we're not left holding the bag from the
Once you,
state.
if you make the transition to L
Mhm.
and they approve, you now have a contract with the state. And so they're obligated to fulfill that contract.
Okay.
So,
At a future date, possibly in our packet, can you give us an update on the, what was the word? The site work that they did?
Okay.
Thank you.
administrative goals, per our, administrative retreat, June 1st. We went through the strategic plan, identified items that are, that were 2020 items and ongoing. We identified those items that were 2021 items, and any other ongoing items, and then developed several district goals that are associated with each one of the focus areas, and each one of those strategic objectives. I've shared with you a color document that each of you can take a look at. And what I'd like then from the board is to review them. We'll keep this item on the agenda. You can provide me with feedback at our next meeting, August 5th. We'll continue in our administrative meeting to make any tweaks, to incorporate any tweaks that you might suggest.
Thank you.
You're more than welcome.
Any other comments this evening, Dr. Nichols?
No, I just appreciate the opportunity to present this evening. And I can't praise our task force enough, as I've said a number of times this evening and over the last several weeks. Once again, to our community members, there is no right answer. I mean, and we're trying to make the decisions, the best decisions we can for our community based on all of the information that we've taken in. So I appreciate that opportunity to present.
Thank you, Dr. Nichols.
Mhm.
Item J, board business. Number 1, resolution to declare racism as a public health crisis as it adversely impacts our students, families, staff, and community at large. I'll ask for a motion in a second, then I'll ask Mr. Gomez to read our resolution.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Mr. Gomez, please.
Resolution to recognize racism and the negative educational impacts it creates for our students, families, staff, and community at large. Whereas the Board of Education of the Cuyahoga Falls City School District, Summit County, Ohio, hereforth referred to as board, is a public school system within Summit County. And whereas there's a long history of racism, discrimination, segregation, and marginalization within our country, which has adversely impacted educational and economic outcomes for many racial groups, specifically Black citizens. And whereas the preponderance of research suggests that this history has had a lasting detrimental impact on the educational outcomes of Black students and others through curriculum, discipline, and climate. And whereas racism has been determined to be a social determinant of health inequities through its direct physiological impact on individual and population health, as well as indirectly through its impact on educational, socioeconomic, and other social structures, which can lead to negative long-term health outcomes. And whereas the board acknowledges that our students are a predominantly white body, of which 80.1% are white, 6.8% are Asian, 5.4% are Black, 5.4% are multiracial, 2.2% are Hispanic, and 0.01% are Native American, all with diverse experiences, further highlighting the need to advocate for our diverse student populations. And whereas a significant population of our district, representing 4% of all students, are English language learners, and whereas significant efforts have been made to welcome our ELL families, including hiring an ELL coordinator, hosting a separate ELL open house, and hosting an annual cultural fair to learn more about the unique diversity these families bring to our district. And whereas our district has recognized that racism exists by engaging in diversity training with Denise Ward of State Support Team 8, training with Dr. Matt Devers of the Summit Educational Initiative, undergoing an introduction to implicit bias, and making difficult but necessary changes to make classroom parties more inclusive for all. And whereas Black students continue to trail white students in test scores, reading 90.1% proficiency for white students, 74.5% proficiency for Black students. Math, 86.7% proficiency for white students, 65.1% proficiency for Black students. And whereas the board has begun to engage in intensive equity work with integrated comprehensive systems for equity to create and adopt our equity non-negotiables as a decision-making framework, and whereas the board desires to further implement vigorous actions and share stronger statements recognizing all students who are entrusted in our care, and whereas the board desires to continue to achieve its mission of every student, every opportunity, every day. Now therefore be it resolved by the Board of Education of the Cuyahoga Falls City School District that the board hereby affirms the declaration of Summit County Council for its community that racism is a public health crisis and confirms that it adversely impacts our students, our families, and our community. The board directs the superintendent to continue the engagement with ICS to work to integrate the equity non-negotiables and to create a diverse normative. The board directs the superintendent and/or his designee or designees to conduct expanded mandatory diversity, equity, and inclusion and implicit bias training to the extent it is not already being provided to staff. The board directs the superintendent or his designee or designees to research the formulation of a diversity and equity committee within the district and report that research to the board and make such recommendations as he deems appropriate. The board affirms that Black Lives Matter. The board directs its policy committee to develop and/or revise a racial equity policy to strengthen our district's equity policy in an effort to reduce the effects of racism on our Black, Latinx, and other marginalized students and staff. The board directs the superintendent and staff under his direction to begin to analyze our curriculum with a diversity lens to develop and/or revise policies and protocols integrating additional racially and culturally relevant content into the curriculum and within the school buildings. The board directs the district to recognize and honor Indigenous peoples' contributions and the impact that history has had on their heritage within our curriculum. The board directs the superintendent to prepare an annual report that provides the following information: the number of complaints received from parents, students, or community members regarding racial bias, the status of the investigation, and the general outcome of each complaint. The board directs the superintendent or his designee to incorporate racism and the public health effects it has into the student wellness plan. I'm gonna stop there. The rest is legalese.
Okay. Discussion.
I'd just like to make two brief comments. One is that I don't look at this as yay me for bringing this forward. I look at it and question myself why I didn't bring it forward sooner. So I'm not trying to do this for any praise or adulation. That's not the goal. The goal is just to do the work. And secondly, I want to thank Dr. Nichols because he could have looked at this as an accusation or an attack, and he did not. He looked at this as work that needs to be done and was a strong partner in helping develop this.
Thank you, Mr. Gomez. Any other comments? Roll call, Ms. Stoiko.
Ms. White?
Aye.
Mr. Gomez?
Aye.
Mr. Martin?
I abstain.
Ms. Moffett?
Aye.
Ms. Schofield?
Aye. Item 2, Business Advisory Council Member Appointment. It's recommended the Board of Education appoint the following member to the Business Advisory Council. Nate Winston.
So moved.
I'll second.
Moved and seconded. Discussion?
I think he will be a great addition, and I think the business that he has can be a great tie-in with our program here. So I'm hopefully looking forward to this partnership being established.
DCP Automotive is his business, and he's been partnering with our auto mechanics program. They're a strong partner there. He's a champion on the Chamber of Commerce. He's been a champion on our alliance, and he did great work on my truck Monday.
There's the testimony, right? All righty. Any further discussion on Mr. Winston? And we're grateful for all he does. Thank you. Roll call, please.
Mr. Gomez?
Aye.
Mr. Martin?
Aye.
Ms. Moffett?
Aye.
Ms. Schofield?
Aye.
Ms. White?
Item 3, board self-evaluation. This was an agenda item Mr. Gomez brought forth at our last meeting. This is a discussion item.
I got the idea at last meeting that we were fairly on board with doing this. So the question is, how do we do it? My proposal would be that we do it through OSBA because they're kind of the experts. I know that they have 3 people that would do that. I think Cheryl or Terry would probably, Terry Morgan or Cheryl Ryan would be the better choices. I don't care which one, unless somebody feels strongly. And then perhaps we could reach out to them.
I don't know. I think the public lets the board know how they're doing every 4 years.
This is I think more of a self-evaluation.
Right.
Yes.
Well, I understand, but I think we get our self-evaluation every 4 years at the ballot box.
Well, that wouldn't be the meaning of self. Self would be
That's right.
personal reflection.
Exactly. I'm fine with whatever. When I think of a self-evaluation, I just go through that checklist that is in our policy.
Yeah.
It's in there a couple of times and you just rate yourself and, it's.
I like the insight that it brings to us as individuals and also us working collectively as a board. So I think it's always a great learning experience when we sit back and have to seriously consider the work that we're doing here and what we can do to improve not only ourselves as individuals, but as a board. So I'm looking forward to this if we move through with it.
Any further comments on this item? Well, let's at least do this. Mr. Gomez, would you be willing to take the initiative? Let's just chat with OSBA, just see what time commitment would be involved or what kinds of documents we'd need to have on hand or kind of meeting arrangements would need to be made. Just get some logistics and then we can move forward.
Will do.
Thank you. We're ready for future agenda items.
Well, I was going to ask my fellow board members and ask our superintendent and or our treasurer, since we have 2 executive sessions tonight and looking at how it's 10 minutes till 10 right now, would either one of you or both of you be willing to postpone until our first August meeting, the executive sessions that are scheduled for tonight?
The dilemma there is that we
I
are
understand.
required by policy to evaluate them. So we could do something similar to what we did last year and delay the conversation, but we still technically have to exchange the information formally to meet our policy needs.
So I have everything, like I have copies of bullet points to each of your questions.
I have bullet points to each of your questions. I do not have copies.
You could provide those
That's
for
what I'm saying.
That can be provided. That can be provided pretty quickly.
So my hope would be then that we could reschedule, and I'll make the motion when it comes time for that to postpone both executive sessions till our August 5th Board of Education meeting, if that is okay.
The only question I have is, are we going to be in any better position on August 5th, time-wise, or are we going to have a lot of work that needs done?
I don't anticipate presentations that are 3 hours long like tonight.
Well, and tonight we had to start at 5:15.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we're coming into our 5th hour here.
I would be okay if everyone has the availability to start the August 5th meeting at 5:15 as well, and maybe do the executive sessions first. So that way they're done. I just don't want to do a disservice in the executive sessions because I know I'm fatiguing out. And I apologize for that, but I've been going since 4:30 this morning.
Well, I mean, quite honestly, this decision is yours because it is your evaluation. We have done our work. We've provided that to you. And, the conversation is as important, if not more important. But nonetheless, if you are willing to wait and maybe just provide us with your feedback now, and then we'll be ready to go. And then yours is done and you can provide us with copies of that, you'll be ready to go. And then we can take Mr. Martin's suggestion, but Ms. Stoikoy,
That's fine with me.
okay, Dr. Nichols,
Thumbs up.
okay.
I'm
Then
hungry.
motion,
I have
please,
not
Mr.
eaten
Martin?
a thing
Not
yet
yet.
today.
I make
No,
a
not-
motion.
Oh, not yet.
Well, yeah, I was gonna. I
Okay,
can
we're
make it
ready
now if we like.
for, that will be our future agenda item then. We've not-
No, I want to do book club sometime here. coming
All
up.
right, book club is on.
When do you
Either
want to
the-
do it, Patty?
First or second August, because I know everything is really, so maybe the second one in August.
Second one in August
that
it is.
a little better for us.
Works for me.
And that would be
Okay.
before or after 800 pages of policy.
Patty and I have been done.
I'm only on
I've
page
already
210,
read,
so I've got a ways to go.
No, I'm sorry.
All righty. Public comments, we've covered Ms. Zimmerman's. We're ready for committee reports. Let's see if we can do this in a timely fashion. Mrs. Moffett, please, Alliance for School and Community Growth.
We met, we discussed, and we ended yesterday.
Thank you. Next. No, I'm teasing.
Oh,
I only need to really say one thing because we briefly discussed during our hour and a half or hour, 15-minute meeting, the discussion that we had tonight. We referenced that. And we also worked on the plan that needs to be submitted to the Department of Education by September 30th for the Business Advisory Group. The end.
Anything else, Mrs. Moffett?
That'll do it. Thanks.
Well, thank you. And we'll go to athletics, Mr. Martin and activity.
Yeah, just a quick one. We will have our next meeting, I believe, coming up in September. I believe it is. The big question for athletics this year is, will they happen? It appears they are, but there's a discussion on testing requirements. And I'm waiting to get more information because as an official, my understanding is I will have to get a test prior to every match or game I officiate. I don't know that that's still the case now, and I'm waiting for clarity. So that is something that, Dr. Nichols, I don't know if you're aware of that. I don't know.
What you've seen.
Yeah, so that's what we're kind of waiting on, and that's going to kind of determine where things go. So there may be additional costs that we were not expecting that may be involved in that, so.
Thank you, Mr. Martin. Board policy, Ms. White, Mr. Gomez.
We met last evening. We discussed and will be bringing forth a policy for the Financial Advisory Committee per Mr. Martin's request. We need to know if other board members want a hard copy of the policy book. It's your prerogative. But we need to know if you want a hard copy when it's finalized. You need to voice that concern now.
Yes.
Is that part of our fee? Is that provided by OSBA as part of our fee?
There were a certain number of hard copies that were included into our contract. And I think Mr. Gomez is going to talk about the contract associated with the online portion as well.
Yes.
But there were a certain number of copies that
Okay.
were included, yeah.
All right,
Yes,
So-
I would like one.
good.
Mrs. Moffett, Mrs. Schofield.
I would, yes.
Well, yes, depending on expense, I only really need to get the contents page because I'm struggling, online to try to quickly get from one place to the other. So,
The other thing we discussed was review of policies after first read. We have not heard from people about changes that might need made. We just ask that if you find them, please do voice them so that they can be looked at. We also talked about the need for transition time. The day that we vote to approve them cannot be the day that they become active because
exactly.
our administrators won't have time. So Dr. Nichols will be recommending that 6 weeks after adoption, he believes that he can make sure that our administrators know what's changed in that time. And then 6 weeks after we vote, they will become our official active policies because we don't want to set our people up for failure. And the last thing is that we will be recommending approval of a contract for the online conversion of our policy manual at our next meeting.
Would that be accessible to anyone then, once that's
Yes.
online? Okay.
So that was not part of our initial contract for the transition. Thank you, Mr. Gomez. Business Advisory Council, Ms. White, Mr. Martin.
We
Just-
meet in August, I think it's
Yes.
24th
I believe so.
at 8 a.m.
Thank you. Financial Advisory Committee, Mr. Martin.
We're just going to wait and see what we find out in September from the OFCC, and hopefully our treasurer, Christie, will have an opportunity to get some things worked on for the next presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Martin. Foundation Alumni Association, Mr. Gomez.
We met last night. We discussed fundraising opportunities that we are going to be looking into to raise funds for the foundation. We also welcomed a new potential trustee, Christine Schrader, and we would like to once again promote our website where you can buy a variety of wonderful items emblazoned with our district logo, a portion of which the funds goes back to the foundation. And you can buy face masks with our district logo on it, which mine is already being shipped and on its way.
I'll do that.
All righty, Legislative Liaison, Mr. Gomez.
The only thing is the CARES funding that Ms. Stoyko already covered.
Thank you. And finally, Student Achievement Liaison. There continues to be many opportunities for online updates on all of our curriculum areas through OSBA. I think many of you get those. If you don't get those, they're in science, language arts, social studies, foreign language, whatever. I can certainly send them on to you. I don't want to fill your mailbox with things you don't need. Just let me know if you have any interest in any of those. Most of them are curriculum updates, state standard reviews, and of course, all of the special dispensation we've been given for state testing this year and some of those requirements. All right, comments. Mr. Gomez, please.
Two brief things. One, I just want to say what a privilege it has been to have Mr. Hutch as our IT person, especially during this time, because he's coming right out of the classroom, right out of the building, and he gets it. And it's been such a phenomenal benefit to us. And I know we all feel that way. So speaking for all of you on that. And the other thing I want to say is that while I have some issues with our plan, people see any disagreement with Dr. Nichols as reason to attack him. And what I want to say is that you can disagree with someone and still see the good in them. And that's how I feel. I don't base any one vote off of any one thing. I base it off of everything. So while we might have, trust me, we have some very strong disagreements about this plan. We had a conversation about that last night. But it doesn't mean he's evil. It doesn't mean he's bad. And it doesn't mean he's not the right person to lead our district.
Thank you, Mr. Gomez. Mr. Martin, please.
Yeah, I'd just like to thank you, Dr. Nichols, for the time that you put in with your team to get that together. It's basically a no-win situation for everyone out there. And we had a little bit of experience with the end of the 2020 graduating class, but this is still uncharted territory. So this is what the committee's come up with, is what they feel is the best options for our kids and our parents. I know that folks aren't going to be 100% happy, but if this is what we feel is the best, then I'm 100% there with you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Martin. Mrs. Moffett, please.
I would just like to continue my thanks for everyone who's worked so hard to put this together and do the likeness of the hour. That'll do it.
Ms. Moffett, Ms. White.
Yeah, I'd like to also thank the task force for their plans. I know how hard that was. And you know, again, I disagree too somewhat, but hey, I think you worked so hard and so long and so well that I trust you to make a good decision for our kids and our teachers. So I want to thank all of you on that team. I'd also like to thank Mike Wyrick, who has been called to active duty again. I don't know how many times this is now. I know at least 3, I think, maybe even 4. And he will be leaving our district to go off. I'm not sure where he's headed, but he'll be back into service to our country. I want to thank him for that service and for his steadfast service to our school and community, and wish him the best. All speed home. Get home safe, Mike, to your family and the people that care about you. Thank you for your service. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Ms. White.
Mhm.
Item K, executive session.
Madam President, at this time, I would like to make a motion that due to time constraints, that we postpone until our August 5th, 2020 regular Board of Education meeting, both the executive session scheduled under Section K and under Section L of this agenda at this time.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded that we postpone K, executive session, L, executive session, until our August 2nd meeting.
Yes.
5th.
5th,
August
I'm
5th
thinking
meeting.
August 5th.
Jeez.
August 5th meeting.
August 5th meeting. I'm sorry about that. Thank you. So moved and seconded. When we change the agenda after it's been approved, remember we need a supermajority vote. So roll call, please.
Mr. Martin?
Aye.
Ms. Moffett?
Aye.
Ms. Schofield?
Aye.
Ms. White?
Aye.
Mr. Gomez?
Aye.
Item M, adjournment.
Motion, so moved.
I'll second.
Moved and seconded. Roll call.
Ms. Schofield?
Aye.
Ms. White?
Aye.
Mr. Gomez?
Aye.
Mr. Martin?
Aye.
Ms. Moffett?
Aye.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Have a great evening.